Did you hear that?
Yeah, what was that at the end? It was like a drum roll at the end or something.
I don't know. That was
something new.
I didn't do anything to it. Welcome to Tone Talk with Mark Uzansky and Dave Friedman. Hope you guys are doing great. It's episode 115. Crazy that we're that many episodes. Jason Tong from Headfirst Amplification. What's up, Jason? How are you?
Hey all. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are.
Now instead of watching, he's on it.
Yeah, it's a bit surreal, I will say, but yeah, no, thanks for having me, guys. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, our pleasure, man. I think there's a little echo. Do you hear a little echo?
No.
Okay. Maybe it's just on my end.
Might be me.
I'm going to lower my thing here just a little bit. Okay. All right. So it's Friday night. We already have a super chat. We've got lots of people watching already.
Yeah.
And,
guys, this is going to get geeky here.
I told
so
that
I hope you're in for it. This is the Geek Fest show. We're going to geek out.
I told my cousin that. I was like, if you want to talk about resistors and stuff like that,
circuits and things
and boards, today's the show.
Today is the show. And if you don't, well, either
Stick
sit and
around
watch and you're interested, or you can go buy. Bye. But if you're bored to tears, like someone said, didn't someone?
Someone said that on a forum.
Boring.
Yeah, that's okay.
I don't remember what they said.
Yeah,
someone always says something.
Australia representing here. What's up, Cal?
Hey, Cal. How are you, mate?
You know Cal?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cal, there's a lot of people from Australia these days, it seems, in the music industry. And we were talking about that. We know a bunch of people.
Yeah. Right. The other day, and I think the guys that I've got to know a lot of the local community here who play or build or just collect amps and so on, and so a lot of them said they're going to tune in today. So I hope they're online.
Oh, cool.
Do
you know Simon? Also, Simon.
Yeah. No, I've never met Simon.
Okay.
I absolutely know who he is. Saw him play the VH1 set.
Yeah.
That was at the Melbourne Guitar Show, which is just, that thing is hosted about 15 minutes up the road from where I live.
You were there? You went to see it?
Yeah. It ran every year. That it was like a mini kind of NAMM, not like NAMM, but Australian version, right? Smaller.
I'm not sure NAMM's like NAMM anymore.
Yeah, that's it, right?
We're gonna see.
Yeah. Are you going, Dave, to NAMM?
I think I might go visit for a day.
Yeah.
And just wander around. I'm not exhibiting, although I'm thinking maybe I'll shove an amp in someone's booth.
Yeah, why not?
That I know. I'm got to figure that out, but
that's a good way to do it.
Maybe Celestian or something.
Yeah. Well, there's been no announcement as to whether the Melbourne show is going to return, right? Because it got closed down obviously over the last 2 years or so with this pandemic, and it was starting to build quite a nice profile, right? And you were starting to get some people coming from all around the country to come to this thing, and I had started thinking about actually getting a booth, right, for my own stuff if it came back, but I don't believe there's been any announcement yet, so I don't know if it'll return or not.
I hope these things come back in a way. It'd be sad if NAMM just went away. I don't know. It was a lot of fun.
It's going to exist. It's going to exist in some format, but I think why does a company like ours? I don't know if it makes sense for anymore.
It might not make sense.
We don't need dealers.
No.
We've gotten every dealer across the country mostly that could possibly carry our products. There's less and less independent dealers anyway. So there's really not a big bunch of stores to choose from. And the amount of money to show all the boutique brands, that's a 50 by 50 booth. 50 feet by 50 feet. The booth space is something like $60,000 or something.
And you guys put in
Just
that
the raw floor, the cement.
The floor, just the
Yeah.
cement. Yeah, that's.
And you put in the soundproof room, right? Or
Well, we put in all the stuff was built in house on site. All of it's gone now because that whole thing went away after the fire. So the whole NAMM booth has been trashed, so that's gone.
Oh, so even to get a whole new.
So we would have to do something whole new. I don't know if we would do it on the same scale.
Yeah,
we could potentially do something like we did at Nashville NAMM before,
Summer
which was
NAMM.
like 10 by 40 or something we had or something.
Mm-hmm.
Just a long thing, and you have a little smattering of just the latest stuff from the latest brands, and you don't have everything. You don't have a sound room, which sucks. And
yeah, I'll miss that.
We'll see.
That was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun because we had a bar.
Yeah,
we had a bar in the sound room.
Oh, it was great.
A full bar.
full bar, snacks.
Even the bar's gone.
And a wet amp set up with a full giant rack. It was
the giant racks. Yeah. Well, there's reason to bring it back.
Yeah.
All that stuff's gone. All of it.
Oh, that's crazy.
All of it's gone. During the pandemic, when we were shut down, we sold all of it off.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Well, at that point in time, we needed to generate some money.
Yeah. I'm just saying hi to Dan. We got a bunch of people here. We got John DeShane, lots of the usual suspects watching the show. Hope you guys are doing great. Zach says Jason reminds me of the actor James Mason.
Who's that?
Okay. I don't even know who that is.
That's not from my era. That's a little bit older than my era also, I think.
Right.
What, he's from the black and white movies or shows.
So I look that old, yeah. Okay, cool. We were just talking about that right before we came on here about what it's like to be in the 50s now.
Yeah. Makes you appreciate the 40s even better. Listen to John DeShane and subscribe, everybody, please. Which reminds me, we are really close to 20,000 subscribers. We're just less than 200, which means I've got the paper cutter out, and I think Sunday my wife and my son, you're lucky, Dave, you don't have to go through this. I have to write down like 500 and something names of people.
I think maybe we should have done the giveaway when we were already hit 20,000.
Yeah.
I mean, was there a time frame for the people to answer that question?
Well, up until
There should have been.
There should have been. I don't know. Maybe I didn't think through these rules.
We had to do this again. It was like, we hit 20,000. We're giving away this guitar today and today only.
Yeah.
Go in the video and answer the question.
I'll take your advice on it because I have a lot of work to do. It's probably going to take a few hours to go through everybody's names. I'm going to put it into a pot or something that will take all these little pieces of paper, and then I will pull it out. I'm going to pull it out and we'll tell you the name, and whoever won worldwide will get the guitar. All right.
Mark is going to pull it out on air.
On air. Pull it out on air. That'll keep people. That should get a lot of people live. That should get a lot of people watching.
You'll get 30,000 subscribers if you announce
I don't know about that. That's funny.
How many subscribers, people, if Mark pulls it out on air? This is a dare.
Oh God, Mark will lose his job immediately.
It could be.
We got Peter Urban. What's going on, man?
Hello, Peter.
Thanks for the show. Dave is here we go. Is a simple resistor dummy load safe for an amp, given impedance and power are matched properly? Thanks in advance.
Yes. Perfectly safe, but you do not have to necessarily match the impedance. So, in reality, if you're using a resistive dummy load, it's actually better if it's higher, a little higher than the impedance. So, I mean, in my test, not that much higher, but like, if you set your amp use a 16 ohm load resistor, set your amp on 8 ohms. it sounds more open and better.
And you need to be careful with the heat that'll be generated, right? So people will often buy those kind of orange colored, load resistors. You can buy them on, eBay, Amazon, whatever.
Yeah.
8 ohm, 16 ohm, whatever, and it says 100 watts on it.
Oh no, 300 watts.
Watts, right? And you got to heat sink it, right? Otherwise, this thing will melt. So
yeah, it will melt everything you have it set on.
Yeah, correct.
So you're better off if you're going to do that, mount it into something, but not 100-watt one. If I use one resistor, it's going to be a 300-watt one.
Yeah.
So a 300-watt one with a 100-watt or 50-watt amp is fine, and you won't need to heat sink the 300-watt one, but it still gets warm, so it's hot. So you have to be careful what you're doing. Or you can just buy a power station. You get a power amp, you get a reactive load, or you get a resistive load if you'd like. Any impedance you'd like.
Yeah, you can see I've got one right there.
Yeah, it's good.
Get my finger here, right? There we go. That's a PS2. Actually, I don't have the 100. I don't know if it's worth going up to the 100 if it's that much.
Yeah, it is.
I love the PS2. It's great.
It is. It is actually worth it to get the 100. It's nice to get that. It's nice to get the extra channel, and you can actually boost it. And yeah, it's cool. But
I'm probably getting company accommodation pricing on it.
Yes, you might know somebody.
Yeah, I know somebody. But you can sell. I mean, that's what I did. I had the PS2. I sold mine, and
the only thing with that PS2 that I find I wish it had, and I think they actually added it in the second series of the PS2, is the line out. You can't adjust the level of the line out. So if you're
the second version of it, they have the
so it can get pretty hot if you're running a hot 50 or 100 watt amp into it. That line out signal's pretty hot as well. So
yeah, they fixed that.
Yeah. Just I'd sell the first one and upgrade. That's what I did too. So Paul Crane, this leads me into which I wanted to dive into with Jason. He says, I'm interested in hearing from Jason. I can't recall ever being aware of Headfirst amps when I was living in Australia. I heard of your amps first from Leon Todd.
Yeah, Leon. Yeah, Leon's over in Perth, which is the other side of Australia from where I am. But Leon's been awesome. He's been fantastic. And Brett Kingman is the other quite well-known YouTuber in Australia. And Brett's only about half an hour's drive from me. And both of them have featured the Kelly amp that we do. And but yeah, I mean, depends when when the guy left. I can't remember the name. Sorry, it's already gone off the chat.
Paul Crane. Yeah.
When Paul left Australia, because we've really only been getting kind of serious about what we're doing here over the last 2 years or so, maybe 3 years, right? So, but I can talk a little bit about, if it's of interest, I can talk a little bit about kind of how,
tell your story.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I've kind of always tinkered with stuff, right? Like I think a lot of people, who play guitar and like amps and stuff do, but it was probably 10 years ago or so. And Dave, you'll laugh at this, right? I pulled apart a PV Classic 30.
I'm sorry.
The one with
the circuit board that's bent like a U-shape.
The U-shaped circuit board.
With all the little connectors between each board that break when you do that.
Yeah. Ask me how I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your answer is, can you fix this? No. Can you modify it? No. Well, I can look at it to see if the tubes are okay, and if maybe you just have bad tubes.
I was feeling adventurous at that time. This is before I got into any of the kind of stuff I'm doing now, right? This is the beginning of the journey. But I tinkered with that thing, and managed to get it back together and get it working again. And it was like, holy crap, this thing sounds better, right? So that led to getting a couple of kits. Kind of like you get the full kit, everything in a box delivered to you, right? This is about 10 years ago, give or take. And again, I kind of got, built those two amps they were kind of Marshall style things. One was the old 18-watt kind of 1974 style thing, right? And the other one was a kind of derivative of the pre-tone stack master diode clipping kind of hot rodded thing, right? But both of them generated sounds that I thought were pretty good, right? I was like, shit, this is, that not only is it fun, but you can actually create something that the end result's pretty reasonable. But I kind of left it there. I didn't kind of pursue it. I actually used those amps and used them in gigging situations and so on. But I didn't kind of continue the build until I saw this video on YouTube, and you guys will know this one well. It's Phil X, and I think he's in a red room. I'm guessing it's in your shop, Dave. And he's demoing the BE100. I remember this video. I always go back and watch it every now and then too, right? It was
like 2009, 10, 2000, probably 2011 or 12, probably.
Yeah, so I can't remember what year it was that I actually came across it and saw it. It wasn't when it was first released, but it was, let's call it 6 or 7 years ago, something like that. And I saw this video and I thought, holy crap, that amp just sounded incredible and amazing in his hands, of course. And he's ripping out all these EVH licks, which was pretty easy to get my attention when you're doing that stuff, right? And then I saw the other video that I came across around about that time frame. It's an LA Amp Show video, and Dave, it's you're
Doug
there.
Rappaport?
No. Well, you've got a naked amp there, and you've got, I think, a very early Dirty Shirley. And I can't remember the players. You have to forgive me. I can't remember who. But you had two different players. One guy was demonstrating the naked, which sounds killer, right? And then someone was playing a Strat into your Dirty Shirley.
No, that was, I think, Travis that used to work for us. Yeah. Yeah,
right. And that thing just sounded so lively and glassy and just like that. I think about the best of what when I think about a Strat sound, it was there, and I was like, so then I started looking at prices of this stuff in Australia, what these things cost, right? And I was like, okay, right, you can buy a car.
I need to build this.
Yeah, I need to build, right? I need to build. This is that got me into it. I was like, I wonder if I could build something. So I set about doing that, and I set about building my first amp. And this was all at the time, it was all just for me, right? I didn't have no ambitions to go and try and, do anything other than use this as a hobby and build stuff that, stuff that I want to be able to use. I'd want to be able to play live with it or whatever, right? But it was only ever that. So I did my first turret board build, sourcing parts, not doing a kit, actually just getting parts together or whatever, right? And then that, again, I got a great result, and I built two of those amps, right? So my mate Hilton, who's about half an hour down the road here, he's still got one of those amps and uses it regularly. I've still got the one that I did too, sitting on the shelf in the other room, right? So that was cool. And then I wanted to progress into more complex amps, right? So switching. This is when you get into, this is how the whole PC board thing happened. Because as soon as you want to start designing or building amps that have relay switching in them.
Oh, tell me. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I know, Dave, you probably went through the same.
We made this transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you start doing not stupid things, right? But you start figuring out, well, how can I put relays into a turret board amp?
Yeah, we did for a while.
Yeah, right. And there's a couple of ways. You can glue them in. You can sit them upside down and glue them on the board, right? Works. You can buy little PC boards for relays, right? And I've actually got a bunch of those on my online shop. People actually grab those and add them to their amps, right? And that works. But of course you end up with all these kind of satellite boards, and the amp starts to become a bit of a mess inside if you're not really careful. But the build time becomes significant, right? So hand wiring all this stuff becomes difficult. And There's another amp builder, Don Cohinger. So I think Don might actually be watching now. So Don kind of became my mentor for this whole PC board stuff. And Don's got a company called Melbourne Amp Company that, amongst other things, he had a signature player, Dave Leslie from the Baby Animals. I don't know if you guys know Dave. So the Baby Animals.
I know the name of the Baby Animals. I know.
Yeah, well, they toured supporting Van Halen in the early 90s.
That's why I know it. Yeah.
And Dave's a monster player. There's a video actually. There's a video of Eddie playing backstage on a red and white Strat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Dave Leslie's Strat. I'm pretty sure.
Oh.
Yeah, pretty sure, right? So Dave's been around, and he's I believe he's still got original Music Man EVH guitar that Eddie gave him, actually, on the back of the tour nice. Together. So anyway, Don's a Melbourne guy who has, he's a fantastic builder and knows just crap loads about tube amps, right? So I've leaned on him for knowledge over the journey, to be honest. And I was talking to him one day about this dilemma of how do I progress into doing something more complex, and he said, you should start doing printed circuit boards. I said, no, that's beyond, why would I do that, right? So anyway, he got me started because Don had already gone through that learning curve. And I found, I guess, with my background, so I did a physics degree at university. I had electronics and digital tech as a kind of a background, and in my day job, right, I was actually a software engineer in probably the first part of my first half of my working life. And I found that, I guess, the combination of those skills and background and, I guess, the drive to kind of try and do something with it, those things came together, and I found that, I could actually do this, right? And so I did these boards. I did my first kind of main board, and, these main boards have got everything on there. You can do 12-volt DC heaters and that's also a DC supply for your relay switching, onboard relays, the whole thing. And so you really kind of start to create something that means that, you can create a high gain amp with quite sophisticated functionality and low noise as well. And I got some of these up and running, and a couple of other friends here who are also kind of hobby builders, Kurt, Gary, and these guys. I mentioned their names because they might be watching. So, hey guys, they said to me, you could sell these. I said, no, don't be stupid. This is just my stuff, right? I'm just doing these for me, right? No, seriously, you could. So, Dave, I put feelers out on Slow Clone at the time, which was a online forum, an amp building forum that I used to hang out quite a lot in. Not really anymore. I don't really kind of go there too often these days, but it's an amp building forum where, kind of enthusiasts, I guess is the word I'd describe, kind of hang out. And I put feelers out there as to who might be
occasionally a little toxic, but
that's why I don't hang out there so much.
Yeah. But a wonderful forum, actually. But yeah,
well, I got tired of getting told I didn't know what I was talking about one too many times, so I decided not to post there so much anymore. But it's been that's actually was a helpful forum in my journey, because it was a kind of place that you could post questions, and there's some really knowledgeable guys on there. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
And they're really generous with their knowledge too. Most of the guys there, so fantastic. So anyway, I put a couple of posts up there and said, who would be interested in these. And I did a run of 30 boards, and they were all snapped up within the first day. And I thought, oh, okay, so this might be something. And so we just went from there, right? So we started with the DIY thing, and that's kind of become part of what we're doing, is supplying these boards. And I've got one here to kind of, if anyone's wondering what the hell I'm talking about, this kind of thing, right? So this is our Kelly printed circuit board. It's 2.4 millimeter thick fiberglass, double-sided board, and these things, as I said, kind of can form a backbone of your own build, right? So you get a chassis, your transformers, you seat this into the chassis, right? Obviously filled with components, and then you hand wire everything else to, your pots, your tube sockets, the whole 9 yards. And so we kind of got set up with, layout diagrams and that kind of stuff that people could follow. But we're not doing kits. People often ask me, can you give me a whole kit or something? Tried doing that. Pain in the ass, right?
No, that's really hard to do, and make it. I mean, it's a lot more profitable for you as a business to just sell the boards, and some documentation, and not the thing. Yeah, it's sort of like to get any of these boards, you sort of have to understand what you're building. You sort of have to have an idea. This isn't the beginner board.
No, this is
that start with a champ or something.
Yes.
Graduate to an 18 watt. Move on to a 50 watt.
Yeah.
And then move on to more complicated things. But because I see it even on your so there's the Facebook group for Headfirst. And I see it, I did this Jakey Lee mod and I did this to my amp and now it's making this sound, and it's clearly oscillation.
Totally.
And if people don't know, really, if they're too new, they don't know what to shield and what not to shield and what. Oh, I can run a wire all the way across the chassis, right?
Correct.
No, maybe not.
Well, you can, but it's
you can. It might not work. Or the wire is really close to the input jack, and it's
that Facebook group was set up out of me needing to keep my sanity, basically, because once I had some of these boards going out, people were just emailing me.
Oh yeah.
Individually, I know you know everything I'm telling
you.
I know
all about that.
Yep. So I was getting these emails, and I found myself answering the same question over and over again. I was like, "This is insane, right?" So about it was January last year. I set the group up. There's about 900 people in the group now.
Yeah,
and it's got to the point where people can throw questions in there, and
someone else answers for you.
Yeah. Sometimes even Dave.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
I always sort of laugh at I understand that people have to learn, but sometimes I see a question and I'm like, you're clearly a little over your head here.
Oh man, yeah.
And you need some guidance, and that's okay, but you're clearly a little over your head.
100%, right? And it's it's a little bit of buyer beware in this, right? You gotta have some wits about you, because as we all know, right, these things, high voltage DC is not the most pleasant thing to be,
no,
putting your hands on, so to speak, right?
It's worse where you are.
Yeah, well,
the 240 volt or 240 plus volt main voltage. I always laugh. I'm in Australia. I go, "What's your wall voltage?" 247.
Yeah.
Holy crap!
247. Yeah, I've seen it touch 250.
Yeah, the best word of advice for that is if the amp is spec for 240, get yourself a Variac.
Yeah.
Or some sort of brown box, or I don't know if they make that for European. I think they do.
I'm not sure actually, but yeah, getting a Variac was one of the best investments that I made.
Yeah, knock it down to 240 at least, if not a few notches below.
Absolutely. And it's just essential. If you've done a scratch build, there's nothing more terrifying than just flicking the switch and going, looking for smoke, right? At least with the Variac, you can bring the thing up.
Occasionally, I've had, recently, I've had the complete displeasure of working on a bunch of very high powered amps. So we had a Park 150 watt amp. We had a high watt 200 watt amp.
Shit.
And we have currently a Marshall Major sitting here. And whenever you're working on these amps, very the Bariac is essential. Because
What are
you
the-
literally like you want to flick the switch from like you want to
Oh,
back
man.
it up as far back as you can to go click.
what's the plate voltage on these things, Dave? Those things
Oh, well, it depends on which one.
pushing 500?
The high watt was 600.
No way.
Yeah, the high watt was 600, and no different screen voltage. Was just set up, just a standard
Yep.
screen good resistor, and
Mhm.
and yeah, no, I think it was 600.
That's nuts.
I might be getting some of them confused now. Maybe no, I'm sorry. The Park was 600.
Yeah, right.
Park was 600, and that has 6550s. The high watt has 6 EL84s, EL34s, and of course it has already popped tubes 3 more times.
It's
So
just 6-3 aside. That's insane, isn't it?
yeah, and right now it's it's like we're not going to retube it.
No. Yeah. Well, this is the thing about so much talk over the last month, is it right, about tubes, and as a kind of boat, let's if I can describe myself as a boutique builder, small volume, right? The hardest thing at the moment is transformers, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And so we're bringing to market this year this new 100-watt amp, this Alta 100. You can see it. That's my prototype right there, right? The top there. And we're using Haber iron in that.
Oh, forget.
Yeah. Well, let me tell. So here's the story, right?
Oh.
So yeah, look, sourcing parts out
Let
here.
me just apologize ahead of time.
I know,
because chances are the reason you're not getting your transformers is because of me.
I guess that. let me tell you a little story about it. So I've become really, really, really good friends with Shay from Monomyth.
Mm-hmm.
So he bought a few boards off me, mainly the kind of smaller stuff, DC heater boards and effects loops and that kind of stuff, and he's been using those in his mods and so on. And then we worked together his skeleton key amp, right? The version 1 and version 2. I did a custom board for him.
Mm-hmm.
So those amps are built using one of these, this kind of thing, right? But a one-off design for him, and we've just kind of been helping each other out, right? And it's been really great, actually, because when you live half a world away in Australia, it can be difficult to get things in and out of the US, and getting access to that to that marketplace is not always easy. So we went in together, actually, with Jeremy from Ground Zero.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave, I'm pretty sure you know Jeremy too, right? Yeah. So I've just done a board for Jeremy as well, his Helion.
Yeah.
That he's pulled together, which is another really fantastic design. He's got a new board that I just finished probably 2 weeks ago, and it's probably just been delivered to his address, maybe today, tomorrow, something like that, right? So he will use that for the Helion board, or the Helion amp, going forward. But we combined together and put an order in into Haber. It's the only way to do it. Actually, get a kind of a bulk order of with a reasonable number of units. Otherwise, you just can't get in the queue. And I said to Shay, I said, why? And he said, why is that? And I said, because they're winding Dave's transformers all day. We can't get in, right?
Well, that's because when you think about it, we have the whole, all of Soldano.
Yeah. Right.
All of every one of my transformers, power and output.
Yeah, 100%.
Are all from them.
Who makes transformers for Marshall and like
Drake?
Drake. Okay.
in the UK still.
And then for like say EVH amps and stuff like that.
I don't know. So it's Fender.
It's
So
Fender,
probably. I'm not sure what's being used in that amp.
Me neither. I wonder whether Fender have just got their own capability.
Well, they might. I remember PV used to have their own company that they would use, and I don't remember the name of them. Essentially, in the US, for most manufacturers, there's Habor and Habor.
Yeah.
There was Magnetic Components, but they're gone.
Oh no.
And there are Mercury Magnetics still, but I don't care for those. So
they're pretty expensive. What about Pacific?
Pacific exists. Pacific is slightly expensive.
Yeah.
Although Pacific does a really good job. That is a possibility, and some manufacturers do use those. I know Fryette uses those on a lot of amps. Have for years. I know Bad Cat uses those. They can make what you want. I'm not sure if they're going to make it at a price you want.
I've got one of the 100 watt OTs and one of my own builds, and it sounds fine.
Yeah, no, a lot of things sound fine. I mean, to be honest, the transformers made by Hammond sound good too.
That's another option, actually, isn't it? Yeah.
The Hammond, they have Marshall clones and different things, and they're done slightly more budget, but not really. Actually, they're not really Habor's. It's about the same price as Habor, really. But they do a good job. I'm not sure where they're made exactly. I know some of the transformers are made in Canada, but they, like Pacific, they also have offshore capability. And that doesn't mean anything. Really, if you have the spec of the transformer, it can be made a variety of places. Just because it's offshore doesn't mean. I think Pacific had a place in Mexico, and I think they had a place overseas too. I don't know where. And depending on the price point you wanted to hit and what kind of quantities you were going to do, it could go to different factories. But the design is still done at Pacific in the California.
They're in California. I was going to ask that, right?
Yeah. So,
So
I don't know. It's like the Marshall. Okay, yeah. So the Marshall Origin amp and or SV20 and or whatever the 800 version is that you brought up in one of your videos.
Yeah. Oh, that's the SV. What is it? The SC20. Yeah.
Now, they're the same transformers.
100% the same.
100% the same transformers in both amps.
Everything's the same.
Where those come from, I don't know. Probably maybe the Vietnam facility that they have, because they do have a Vietnam facility that makes Marshall products.
Yeah, well, my guess on that is that the Origin is actually fully assembled in that factory, and the Studio series, all of the parts are made in that factory and then shipped to the UK, where final assembly
where they put in a UK made head box.
Yes, yeah, the head boxes are nice.
Where they tube it and put the chassis in the head box, probably. We're guessing.
Yeah,
but it's all fine. It's fine. I mean, the head box is considerably nicer on the UK brand.
Yeah, they are nice. They're nice, and as you said, I actually kind of tried to show them side by side, and
frankly, those amps are made well either one inside,
and they sound good. They sound great.
It's a thick board, big beefy screws in the board.
Yep,
nothing chintzy in there at all.
A lot easier to work on than a PV Classic 30, that's for sure.
That's true. That's true.
That's for sure.
Or like if you get the one, can you mod this PV 5150? No.
They're hard to.
Not if I have to take the board out.
Yeah.
If you have to take the board out of that, you're just gonna be just like, no.
You don't see many modded.
No, you don't.
5150s. And then it's rare.
There's some little tiny things you can do. You can do bias mod and some other little things and some other little tiny tweaks that you can do. But if you have to take the whole PC board out, it starts to be not worth it. It's too hard.
They're only one-sided. Those original 5150s are single-sided boards, aren't they, Dave?
They're totally single-sided board with all these via jumpers, like straight wire jumpers, jumping traces. What always amazed me by those amps, though, is as horribly as they actually were made, as cheap as everything seemed
inside,
they would never break.
It's quite amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing to me, actually. I mean, the preamp 2 boards flexing back and forth, they don't really break. They get dirty. They get crusty. You got to clean everything. You got to clean all the jacks, clean all the pots, clean the tube sockets, and then all of a sudden it's back to life again. It works again. I don't understand.
And they're not that noisy given the construction method. You see all that ribbon cable and stuff with all the unshielded.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a wonder to me.
It's like, how does that work?
I don't know. Maybe there's something about the flex in the board that actually is giving instead of being stiff, and the parts don't crack. Then I don't know. But it's. They do always work.
Yeah, James did some magic there.
I'm not sure. It's
James
interesting.
Brown. 357 Mag. I love me some Tone Talk. Best show on YouTube. Hey, thank you. Love that. I love that. This is a cool question from Optical NZ. Maybe New Zealand. Would be nice to hear Jason talk about New Zealand and Australia amp brands that used to exist back in the 70s due to the trade tariffs preventing imports of Marshall and Fender stuff, and then his stuff.
Yeah, well, that's hey
interesting.
Matt. That's Matt. Hey man, how you doing?
Cool.
So Matt lives over in Auckland, New Zealand, which is where I grew up. I'm a New Zealander by birth, actually. Been in Australia for about 20 odd years, I guess, something like that. So, yeah, when I was a teenager and in my early 20s playing over there. Getting your hands on that kind of stuff was really hard, right? You could buy Marshalls and some things like that. They started to become available, probably in the mid 80s. But in the tube amp world prior to that, it was dominated by local brands, right? So brands like Rocket and others, and they had kind of amps that were almost kind of clones of kind of stuff that you could get overseas, the things that you would see in Guitar Player magazine that you couldn't get. You could go and find an Auckland-based company, or over here in Australia, there were manufacturers in Melbourne and Sydney that were doing the same kind of thing, and it actually generated its own little ecosystem. So back in the 60s and 70s, there were transformer winders here. There was a guy that actually, there's a transformer winder, and I've actually got him to wind some custom PTs for me, who is literally only half an hour down the road, and he's just retiring, unfortunately, right? But his business grew out of, that kind of demand where the imports, because of tariff restrictions and so on, meant that it just created a vacuum, and then local businesses, popped up, right? And these amps are still kicking around. Again, my mate Hilton, who I mentioned before, one of the first turret board amps that I built, he's got two amps from an Aussie manufacturer called Lancer, and these are, I reckon, I've dated these. I reckon these are late 60s amps, right? All completely original transformers, all hand wound in Melbourne, Australia, right? All this stuff. So there is this kind of vintage Aussie amps kicking around, and they're kind of bassman style circuits. Yeah, you can imagine four hole bassman thing, JTM 45ish, that kind of thing, right? No, you won't kind of find anything that's going to rip your head off in high gain or anything like that. But these old amps were actually used by bass players as well back in the day. Yeah, so that stuff is still kicking around. Just in terms of I think the second part of the question was my stuff. Well, I'm really just focusing on this at the moment, right? This is the Alta amp, 3-channel amp. It's all MIDI. So everything in that amp's been designed by myself I've been working on this thing for probably 7 or 8 months now, and it's now at the point where I'm getting a final revision, what I hope is the final revision of the PC board done.
So did you find problems when you made the first prototype?
And the second
one?
I
forgot that trace.
You know what it is? Like the circuit worked, right? Everything that, all the switching and all that stuff, it's layout, right?
Yeah, sure.
So the hard thing in PCB design is getting the layout right, because it can be amazing when it's right, but when it's wrong, it's as noisy as hell. And because all the circuit tracks on the board, I mean, you can put ground planes on the board and so on. You can shield it as much as possible, but it's not the same as shielded coax, because in a shielded coax situation, your signal wire is completely surrounded with a ground shield, right? So on a PC board, that's not the case. The track is still exposed to some degree and can actually get, it can get coupling into it, and you can get bleed and that kind of stuff. And the thing that I had to work around in this design, because I've got DC heaters on the whole board, Dave, right? I've got five 12AX7s on 12-volt DC heaters, and you would think that everyone says DC heaters, it's going to be completely silent, no problem, right? Well, mostly. If you've got that amount of current, what I found was that amount of current flowing through DC, you can still get noise. I was getting some 100 hertz hum.
Really?
Coupling into the circuit. Yeah, it's amazing, right? The things that you discover when you experiment with this stuff.
Interesting.
So it's all sorted now. It's fixed, right? So the focus over the last couple of months has just been on the voicing, actually, of all of the modes, because it takes some work, as you know, to get an amp to sound sweet when you've got different voicing options on it. So it's got like a vintage and a modern voicing on it. We've got diode clipping on this thing that can be switched in and out, and all of those things, when you change one thing in the amp, the whole circuit is different, right?
Sure.
You getting everything in balance. You can think of your design in isolation, and you can look at every single gain stage by itself, and you can go, okay, well, I know what this is what I want this to achieve or whatever. But you've absolutely got to do it with a kind of an eye on the whole thing, right? Because if you change one thing early in the preamp, it'll actually cascade all the way through and have an impact on everything else that you've done. So getting all those things in balance takes some time. And I got to the point probably a month ago where I needed to get some, independent reviews of what I've created, and more than just what I was posting.
Essentially, you drove yourself insane.
Yeah, you do, right? And
you realize that you came back to the original design. No.
Totally. And I think, haven't I done this before? No. So I started. I do all these things. I record. I keep
inevitably always it's like you have something. I can make it better. I'm going to make it better. I'm going to make it better. And you're chasing your tail. Yeah. Maybe that's better. No, maybe. Yeah. And then you go back to the original thing. You're like, no, it was already good.
The hardest thing is knowing when to stop.
Right.
It's like, I don't know if you ever stop. I don't know if you're ever totally happy. I don't think you're ever totally happy, by the way. So just keep that in mind.
I think you're right.
You're always kind of listening to people and trying to gauge feedback, and then kind of subjectively listening to what they had to say. And And maybe you disagree, maybe you don't, maybe you're like, oh yeah, I see their point. Okay, maybe I should address that if I hear that enough.
Yeah.
And it evolves over the years.
That's one of the things I was going to ask you, Dave, and as to how do you, when you get to that point in a design where you've been working on it yourself, what's the next thing you do? Do you get players to come in, or do you?
No, I don't.
Be it. Do you?
I actually never do.
Yeah.
I mean, occasionally, but generally not. Generally, I know when it's done, and then maybe it might go to someone, maybe and give their opinion, but
yeah.
Generally, at this point, I kind of know.
Are you A-Bing into a reference point that you have?
Sometimes you're A-Bing into a reference point. Yeah. Sometimes you're like, maybe you're referencing it to some old amps, or maybe you're referencing it to something else. Depends on what kind of amp it is.
Right.
You always use the same signal chain, the same setup, like your favorite cab?
Yeah, mostly. Sometimes I use different guitars, different kind of pickups and different things. Yeah. Sometimes I swap cabs, depending, just to see how it translates into a different cabinet. But I've been doing it so long now. Now I kind of have
you kind of know when it's there.
I kind of know what I want to make and what I want to do, and what I've developed and what everyone seems to like. It has evolved a little bit over the years. But the essential circuit is still the same. It's just the power sections evolved, or the filtering, or things like that.
Negative feedback changes, this kind of stuff.
The funny thing though, it's interesting. You can build 2 amps. You can put different capacitors across them. You can put a different set of tubes in them. Different kind of tubes that maybe you hate even. And you take your reference and you put it on an amp switcher, and you switch between the two in real time. And then you turn the dials of the one that's made with all the components that you don't like. You turn the dials until it matches by your ear to the other amp. And then you're like, you know what? I can't hear the difference.
Yeah.
The controls are in a different spot.
Yeah.
You use the reference point, and then you change the controls to go. So, this one's a little looser. Okay, I'm tighten this up a little here, and boost the highs a little here, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then guess what? Sounds exactly
I do,
the same.
because people do tend to, and we probably all do this, right? We all tend to get fixated with certain things, like, I'm going to change the preamp tube in V1, or I'm going to flick from EL34s to 6L6s or whatever, right? And because I want this different thing, where in actual fact, you could probably just achieve that thing that you're looking for by moving the treble pot.
Right. No, it's true. I mean, you can put a whole different. I've done it for people before. I'll put 6L6s in the amp versus the EL34. I'll put 6L6s and totally different preamp tubes versus the EL34 amp. Dial them in to be the same. Again, in real time with an amp switcher, have them switch between it blindfolded, and they can't tell the difference. So there is a lot of that.
Chris Picha guitar. Mark, do you ever play on YouTube or what have you? No, I don't really play on YouTube. Dude, I'm 53 years old. No one wants to be watching me on YouTube be playing guitar. There's a lot of guys out there who play guitar and do it great on YouTube. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to bring you great guests and partner with Dave on the show. So, but yeah, I play with a band, and I really got nothing to prove to get on YouTube and start jamming for everybody. That's just not what I'm here for. So, but thanks for asking though. I want to get to some questions here. Modern Vintage. Dave, regarding a first-time road case rack build, can you share build tips, general info for ideal road case depths with cables, rail insert, inset amount from the rear and front, companies you use, and so on?
I mostly use okay, so I'm assuming you're talking of a rack, judging from what you were saying here. So there's some standard sizes for racks. So a lot of times we do pedal drawers and racks and things for people. Our pedal drawers are 18 inches in depth. So rail to rail depth needs to be 18 inches for a larger rack, you know. And then generally the rack rails are inset about 1.5 inches, generally speaking. Depends on what style rack it is. If it's a traditional door rack that has a, you know, like a 2-inch or 3-inch depth in the door itself, the rack rail does not have to be inset at all. If it's kind of a Chris Craft style rack, which I use a lot in rack builds from Encore ANS cases, those racks are a flat door. So it does have to be inset a certain amount. So generally, I think it's 1.5 inches they inset it. It can be custom though; that can be made to your spec. So as far as the company, I mean, for racks, if you want the really nice flat door racks that I use on some racks that I have here, I use a Chris Craft racks, which are made by Encore ANS cases. And the guy to talk to there is Jim. So at least that's my guy. There's other guys. There's Art there also, and I don't know who else. For a rack, they make a really nice, cool rack.
That's cool. Are there a lot of companies who do this? I mean, or it's pretty.
I mean, there's a variety of road case companies. Sure.
Yeah.
I have another company I use, Dragon Case, that I use more for cases than racks. It just what's the budget? How much they want to spend? What do you want to see? Chris Craft Racks years ago was owned by, it was a private company owned by a friend of mine named Stintz. And Stintz was a Swedish guy that used to make these custom road cases that we all used. A fabulous, you know, very small shop and made fabulous stuff. But eventually he sold the name essentially to ANS and they made cases quite well. They've gotten better over time, actually. So I think the case currently made in that style from them is fantastic. They do a internal shock mounted rack now that's a floating rack. So it's not like the old traditional foam on the inside. So it's floating on motor mount kind of things. And there's an internal metal frame. Wow. So it's really nice.
That is really nice.
Yeah.
I'm not drinking anything today, Justin. What are you drinking, Dave?
I don't have anything right now. So hang on 1 minute. I'm going to get my next one and I will comment.
Okay.
Hang on.
What about you, Jason?
This is the Jetty Road. Here we go. Jetty Road Pale Ale, which is a brewery, which is, I don't know, about an hour from here down the Mornington Peninsula.
Oh, cool.
And look, it's only 1 p.m. in the afternoon here, so I'm just trying to take it easy.
But it's Saturday. It's
Saturday. That's right. So it's past midday, right? So
yeah.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. I still can't get over it's 15 hours difference. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's tomorrow.
I know.
Tomorrow, I can tell you
the future.
It's still the same as yesterday.
So we have Delirium Tremens with the little pink elephant.
What is that?
It is a Belgian beer.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. I've never seen that.
Look at you with the exotic
shit. Little pink.
Yeah.
I decided that it was a Belgian day. So actually, I don't drink beer much anymore at all. But occasionally I do.
That's cool. I'm the lightweight tonight.
I went out and saw Pete Thorne and myself went out Tuesday night and we saw Ian Doherty play with July Talk.
Oh, awesome.
At a club here. July Talk is a great Canadian band.
Okay.
And Ian was on our show, right?
He was on our show, yep.
Yeah.
And he plays a Dirty Shirley Mini. And Pete and I went out and Pete was
Lit.
shall we say, inebriated by the end of the evening. I wasn't really, but he was. Kind of look over at him and I'm like, how did you get that drunk? I went to sushi first, but
That's funny.
yeah, we had a good evening. And he had never really experienced the band much, even though he's Canadian. And he fell in love. He was like, these guys are awesome. Really good. Yeah. And then he found out the singer was from Edmonton, which was his hometown. So he was like, hell yeah. As he slurred it.
A little Canadian love.
Yeah.
Stay curious. Dave remarked, does the JJ Junior have more gain than the Run 50?
It will in the JBE mode, which is the wrong clipping mode.
You mean the JJ Junior mode? the mode Dave does not recommend.
No. I was referencing a video he made.
Oh yeah,
Jason made
my diode clamping.
Diode clamping.
Yeah.
Is it done wrong? Or whatever you said?
It's the Jose circuit with the master pushed in.
Yeah,
pulled out. Remember which
exactly.
one? Yeah,
but I don't think at that point in time you realized that.
You're probably right.
Peter,
and then I had someone modify a BE50 in Canada to be like the clipping that was in the video. And he fucked it all up. He fucked it all up. It was oscillating and causing this problem. And I'm watching all these wires and he put this switch like outside the box. I'm like, it's okay if you want to do that, but you got to do it a better way.
Did they end up sending the amp to you?
No. He wound up switching it back to stock.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's a way you can do it, but the way you had all the wires going, you were just causing an oscillation and it was causing an issue. And
totally.
I was like, you got to do it a different way. You can't do it that way.
That's that hot side of the cathode follower, right? That's
oh my God. Yeah. That's going to bleed into everything under the sun.
That is the most sensitive part of the whole amp.
That's the bane of of my existence in making amp board designs.
Yeah.
So the output of the cathode follower that feeds the EQ is the highest signal level in the entire amp. It will bleed through the air to another part of the amp, to the effects loop or something like that.
It's true. Well, I did that. I remember I had an amp.
You have to be very careful.
I had an amp. Yeah, the way the chassis was set up.
Yeah.
Effects loop board, which was a separate board, and they had sherbet coax to and from this board.
Yeah.
But the way it was on the amp chassis, it was sat right on top of V2.
Yep.
And that was enough that the signal from that cathode follower was bleeding through the ear into that effects loop.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's solvable, right? If you plan around it.
Yeah. We had some old designs that were like that, that still exist, that will be changed now. There's new versions coming that have fixed all those issues. I've been kind of going through all the products and making them more not more manufacturable, just more manufacturable. Just going through and doing new board layouts and new board designs and things that needed to be updated for years that just hadn't been.
Yeah.
And it's a constant battle. When you're producing a large number of amps, it's not just like, oh, we use the same board in these 3 amps. No, you need a separate board file for each amp with a separate BOM for each amp, so it can be organized and made properly. So if you were to use an outside board stuffing house, let's say, because you're doing such a large quantity, like say down the street or something, they have to have it has to be laid out so they can produce it. There's certain spacings and certain resistor lead spacings and different things that you can get away if you're hand wiring it. You can get away with a whole bunch of stuff. But if you're the problem is you start to make so much, you're like, well, this is crazy. We gotta do something. We can't make it fast enough. We can't physically make them fast enough, and then everyone gets mad. Where's my amp? I've been waiting for a year for it.
Yeah.
Well, it takes a while.
Have you still got many supply chain issues, Dave, or is that kind of starting to settle?
That's kind of constant. Sub parts here and there, and have to work around and buy. Luckily, there's enough buying power with boutique that they can go in and when they do find the parts, they can buy all of them.
Yeah, I noticed.
All of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, like filter caps now, we order direct from manufacturer, and we order way ahead of time. We started that process before all this happened.
Yeah.
And then finally, 6 months later, we start to get those in, and luckily we have those. Of course, we got to place another order now, so we can get it another 8 months from now.
Yeah. Well, mate, I have to say you have been very helpful for me. This amp here has got synergy caps in it, coupling caps in it.
Did you like those?
Fantastic. Thank you, mate. Dave hooked me up with boutique, and I put in a pretty decent order and got a nice box of.
They do sound nice. They do sound good.
Yeah, fantastic.
They're rich sounding, but they're not muddy. They sound close, really close to the mustards, original ones.
That's cool. I want to mention we had a super chat at the very beginning of the show from El Dorado Guitars. He says, "Hey guys, it's Mike from San Diego. Jason, you built me a Cali late last year. And Dave, you've done work on my Marsha and custom shop and serviced my 87 Jubilee. And Lee Jackson 800. Love your amps and the show, Dave. Can't wait to get my naked. Cheers."
Cool. Well, yeah. I can't wait to get transformed.
Hint, hint. Yeah.
I don't have any transformers.
God, that sucks. So thanks for your question, man. Really appreciate it. Joseph LeBeau, I think. Thank you. Hey, Jason, I just want to thank you for your Jet City mod video. It was one of the best modding videos on YouTube, and it got me tinkering into all my amps. Mark and Dave, you guys are great too. Keep up the great work. Good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah.
That's awesome. Which reminds me, someone wrote me, they're like, "Mark, you say it's cool and that's awesome a lot." So I may make a couple shirts that say,
well, I say it depends. Well, but generally it does.
But you need to throw those on the back of the shirt as well.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I think I'm gonna go, "That's awesome," or "It's cool." One of those two. Which reminds me, guys, check out our t-shirts and products. You can get iPhone cover. You can get all kinds of cool stuff with our logo.
Cool.
So yeah. Let's see.
There's all sorts of little things in the chat.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Geez. They were talking about the Origin 20 mods, Headfirst Origin 20 mods, and some guy said it might be my next project.
Oh, here we go. Can you talk about the Headfirst Origin 20 mods?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I saw that. I watched that video.
Oh, did you? Well, I the inspiration.
I have a question about that.
Yeah, go for it.
So out of the first gain stage, you have the volume and tilt control.
Yeah.
And then it went straight into the next gain stage?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's what you said. Yeah.
Yep.
I was just curious. I thought that would be a lot of gain and kind of a lot of bass.
Well, yeah. So
Because you're not limiting it with a resistor or something into the gain pot, or you're not reducing the value of the gain of the gain pot, or which tightens things up. And
I think a couple of things help it. Because if you think of a 2203, 2204 style architecture, right, you'll have that 470K, 470 picofarad
straight into the
gain pot, and then from the gain pot it goes straight into the gain stage. Yeah. And so in that origin, when I approached it, because I was thinking of like, do I do gain stage, gain pot, or gain stage, gain pot, gain stage? And I went the latter because that's my favorite combo was the kind of the old, 2203, 2204 style architecture. And I found that I think the combination of that gain pot is really, it's not a 1 meg gain pot. It's really low value. It's like,
what was it? Was it 100K?
I think it's 100K. Right?
Oh yeah, it was 100K. Never mind. That makes sense now.
Yeah, it shaves bass.
Yeah, that makes sense now.
That coupling cap.
Yeah.
Into that 100K.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like a high pass filter in its own right.
I forgot.
Yeah.
If it was a 1 meg, it would be way too bassy and kind of screwed.
And then I just sort of figured, look, I'll see how it goes by using the existing trim thing, because I thought, maybe that means that I can, if I dial it up, it's a little bit like that 470K, 470 picofarad network, which is
it's a 001 cap, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. So like if you dial it all the way up, it's just like putting that cap across the input and wiper of the volume pot. Which, okay, I can see that.
Yeah, so it kind of just worked. So I grabbed one secondhand. This was not.
I've modded one before, and I can't quite remember exactly what I did, but now that I'm remembering, it's the 100K pot.
Well, where do you think I got the idea from? The other guy that I listen to a lot is Pete. Right, Pete Thorne.
Yeah.
I watch all his live streams, and either live or after the fact, because he often, when he does it, it's 4 a.m. in the morning here, so I don't get up for that. But I heard he said that you'd modded an Origin 20, and I went, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. And he said it sounded killer. So I picked one up secondhand. This was over probably 15 months. It was last Christmas, not the one before. And I just sent myself the project over the holidays, because I was still holding down a day job, in case anyone doesn't know, right? This all this M stuff is outside of ours that I'm pursuing because I'm enjoying it. And so I had.
We're not all getting rich from this stuff, by the way.
Yeah. What's that old saying about how do you build a $1 million amp company? You start with $2 million.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So look, I had no idea how you'd modded the one that you did. I had no idea, but I thought
very similar.
It's a platform that you could have a go at, right? So I think it's still by far my most popular video on my.
Well, that video sounded really good. I mean, when I modded mine, I did the exact same thing. You lost the loop. You turned the second thing into a cathode follower. I've only done one of those, so
you're right.
Can't quite remember everything I did on it when I did. I left the tilt control in some respect, but I don't think I left the darkening. Maybe I did.
You mod it, yeah. You could bypass it. You could take the signal straight out of there, and
I might have put a resistor 2 on the way in series on the way into it. So in other words, the tail on 10. It might have been, I might have put a 68K resistor in series with 100K to ground. And so on 10, it's kind of like, the
totally
SS or JJ or things,
100%.
Voltage divider between it. And then if you bring it down, well, obviously that pads it down more.
The other thing I'll be thinking about, because I've still got that original Origin 20, it's sitting over here. You can't see it out of camera, but the back to what we were saying before, Dave, about how the components and the transformers in these Origins are the same as the Studio series. So that mod kind of makes it like a hot rodded studio classic. But I'd love to rip my Origin apart and see if I can do a plexi style with it, right? The S, what do they call it? The Studio Vintage, the SV20.
Yeah.
So, and if that worked, it would be a pretty inexpensive way to.
No, it'll work. It's the same.
Yeah, just got to figure out what to do with the tilt control. Not sure what to do with that, but
That'd be just turn it all the way up.
you could set it up as 2 volumes, right? You could have volume 1 as
you would the plexi. You have to change the value of that pot.
You could basically parallel in V1 and use each of those pots as a one is the high treble channel, one is a normal channel, so you could blend them in maybe. So
Mark's just glazing over.
That's so funny. I'm just thinking when
I'm gonna go take a nap. I come back in a few hours. You guys will keep going.
I'm just trying to get a question in here. Guitar Jedi. Dave, can you remember the settings, dip switches to emulate the Jose mod on the PV-VTM?
Oh man, you're gonna have to email me for that because I'm gonna have to look at the schematic.
Okay.
To actually tell you which switch to do what with.
Is that amp?
And it's relatively close. It's not exactly, but there's one mode that there's a few minor things that are different, but there's one mode on it that emulates closely the plexi.
Is it a good amp, or are there things?
Yeah, it's pretty cool actually. Yeah,
cool.
It can. I mean, with a few minor changes, it could be a lot better.
Like what?
Just a few tweaks on take a few things in and out and change a couple.
So there are some mods,
resistors, and
there's a few mods that can happen to it.
Yeah, the whole loop thing is kind of poor in it. It's a passive send with a weird return. Yeah, look at the VTM schematic. It's interesting.
Okay, cool.
It's a cool schematic to look at because I can see the lineage because they have the 20-volt Zeners.
Oh yeah,
with a 1K series resistor with a 0.22 cap, I think, a 0.33, 0.22. And so that came from Jose. Because what it started off with the Butcher amp, which was essentially an 800-ish sort of amp.
Right.
And then they got Mark Ferrari's Jose. And then they applied some things from that modified amp into the VTM. That's what became the VTM.
Is it a pre-tone stack master, Dave? That VTM?
Post.
Oh, it's post.
Mm-hmm. So the clipping diodes are, just like the post version. So
got it.
Post but you can set the 2 stages, the 0.68, 2.7s, 2 stages in a row. The first plate resistor is 100K. That's not quite correct.
No.
The into the gain pot is like a 470K with a 470 picofarad peaker into the gain pot. So that's kind of left over from the 800 section. It's pretty good sounding as it is. I haven't done it yet, but I think I have one here that someone sent me to do it too. But I think with that, just a couple little tweaks. The power section's a little different. It's 6L6s, and it's just a little bit. But I think that architecture will be fine. I think just the front end tweaks will be just minor stuff. I'm not going to fix the loop on that one. It's kind of a hassle the way it's built.
Yeah, passive loop, no good.
Well, it's passive send.
Passive send, yeah.
And it's got a recovery stage on the return. It's weird when you look at it. Take a look at it.
Yeah, well,
it's actually kind of cool. That schematic's kind of neat, and looking at schematics from like Laney stuff is kind of neat too. Looking at schematics of the early Laney AOR.
I had one of those.
Pro Tube lead first, and then Pro Tube lead, then the AOR series 2 after that. If you look at those schematics, you're like, oh, look at that. They were like one of the first hot rod
You're
Marshall
right.
hot rodded
Yeah.
circuits
Yeah,
that was
basically 800 and hot.
almost modern.
Yep.
Again, a few tweaks could have made it great.
Which one was this?
These were like old Laney's, like the old Laney AOR series amps and stuff. A few minor things added.
The Pro Tube 50, they had the Pro Tube 100.
Yeah. Oh, the very first Pro Tubes were pretty much an 800.
There's two boosters
with
in
some
there,
boosts, and some things. But then, and those are very rare. You don't really see those. You don't see them for sale. You never see those. I had one, and then came the AOR version, which was higher gain. And
is that the one where they had split channel, or the AOR?
The AOR had a couple nominal channels, but it was kind of like one. But if you look at it, the architecture seems like, oh yeah, this gain stage into an 800.
Yeah.
So it's like almost like a 0.68 stage with kind of a low value pot after it, so it didn't have a lot of bass.
Yeah.
Into a JCM 800, just put into with some other weird stuff down. There was a gain stage after the EQ, but before the masters. So there was some weird stuff. But that gain stage really had no gain. It was just like a buffer stage, so to speak.
Yeah. Kind of not necessary, but anyway, yeah.
No, so if you took out some of the trash and changed a couple values, I haven't done it, but you could probably make it sound really cool.
I tried to pick one up. There was one on secondhand here a few months back, but I missed out on it because I was thinking the same thing. I reckon those things would be a pretty good platform to work on.
Yeah. They should be. I mean, judging from the schematics.
Yeah.
Lou Sequoia, what's going on, man? Hey, Jason, nice seeing you here. Where does this on the edge about to burst smile come from? Do you know what that means?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe his smile? I don't know.
I don't know. Life's too short. Sad. I don't know.
I thought this was an inside joke, maybe between you
no,
guys.
I don't know. No, not too sure.
No.
Okay. Well, thanks for the question, Lou. Let's see. Mark, your room looks like mine. More gear than room. Yeah. Yeah. So I have like
you can't see all my gear. Like the way my camera's pointed, it's kind of pointing. It's kind of up and pointing down a little bit. But you'd see a lot more amps.
But you have more room. You have more room there.
Yeah.
Oh, there's more amps.
I'd be worried if you didn't have a lot of amps.
There we go. We'll just talk like this. You'll just see my eyes. What do you think?
That's fine. Just see your forehead.
What's the Marshalls that are there, Dave? What have we got?
So dead center is my 50-watt Plexi Marsh 68 Marshall.
Beautiful.
To the left, we have Mike Landau's number 13 SLO 100.
Wow.
Very early one. Up above that is a blonde brown face bandmaster that has the most incredible tremolo you've ever heard.
Wow. Oh, there you go.
Down on the left was the first Metro Friedman prototype that we did. Down on the right, amp heads, is my Jose.
Oh, wow.
Above that is interesting. There's a little rectangular box below a chassis of a JJ Jr., but that is a H&H power amp that was designed to go under a head. It was like a slave amp. Literally, a head can sit right on top of it. It's really cool.
Wow.
And then an old trainer on top of that. Some amp switchers that are sitting there. Power station. And my blue Vox 60s copper top AC30.
Sensational.
There you go.
That's a nice collection. Very nice collection.
There's more. It's just that's what's there.
Oh yeah.
I do have a PV VTM. I also have a high watt 100-watt PA head. that's been converted to DR103 specs that I haven't finished capping, so I need to do that. I never finish my own things. They sit forever and ever until like I have my helper on Saturdays, and I'm like, here, do this. I'll pay you. Just do it.
So Paul has been sending you random PMs.
Hey, Paul.
He says you're awesome. That's cool.
Thanks. Thank you, Paul. You're welcome. No worries.
Peter Schaefer. What's up, man? Hello from London, Ontario, Canada. Let's see. I know we have more questions.
Here's one in the chat that's not obviously a super chat, but they were talking about the origin and how this one guy, Leech Stryzuwiski, I don't know. Sorry, I butchered your name. He said he implemented the Zener dial clipping on an SC20H. Now the other guitar player in my band wants me to mod his Sovtek. He said midget 50, but MiG 50. It would be.
Sovteks, yeah. Yep.
Obviously the SC20H is a cathode follower. And then he said the Sovtek is a plate-fed tone stack. Not in my recollection. I have worked on those, and there was a cathode follower in there. So it was essentially a JTM 45 or Bassman kind of circuit.
I always thought they were too. I've never worked on one day, but I know.
Well, here's the thing to know about those. If you look at them wrong, they'll break.
Fragile?
The pots will break.
Oh,
so
no
the
way.
very first thing you do is you rip all the pots out of it and replace them. And they're all board-mounted pots, and they're really horrible.
I was going to say,
and it's a little bit of doing, but you replace all the pots, maybe all the jacks, and then once you do that, you're at a much better starting point. The transformers are fine. The chassis is fine. It's actually kind of cool. It's a little bit ratty sounding, but but I modded one for I put a Dirty Shirley mod on one for Josh from JHS Pedals. Because he has, I think, the largest collection of Sovtek MiG 50s in existence.
So is the front end a bit like a 2204, Dave, and those things?
No, it's literally just a vintage 4 input
okay. Right.
plexi Bassman style thing. So you can do whatever you really want with it. It's got kind of interesting Russian strange parts you've never seen in your life.
Yeah. Right.
But it all works, and it's kind of cool, and it comes out pretty good actually if you mod it. Yeah. But you got to do some work ahead of time just to save yourself the grief. Change the pots right away.
Cap. How do you know if you need to replace filter caps, especially on an old pre-72 Marshall? Should I keep it stock or replace?
If it's a 1972 Marshall and it's original filter caps, you probably should replace them. Okay. Unless you just love how it sounds and everything about it, then just leave it. Because it will change the sound. Generally, it's for the better. But if you're in love with a certain thing, I'm just saying it will change it.
What's the plate voltage on a BE100 Deluxe?
Somewhere between 475 and 480 volts. Transformers do vary, people. So when you have batches of transformers, you notice not everyone is dead on 480. Sometimes it's 476, 477, 480, some are 480, 482. There is a tolerance to them.
Where do you bias them, Dave? Out of the factory? It's kind of 65% around there somewhere?
32 milliamps or millivolts. per tube.
Yeah.
I actually did a lot of testing with biasing, and also it can vary from tube to tube also. So if you use a certain kind of tube, like for instance on the EL34s that I use, I found that I liked it lower.
Right.
I actually did not like it in the middle range, like say 35. I actually liked it more like 30 to 32. So like I say 32, but what that means is the low tube might be 30. And if you have one that's a little higher, it might be 33 or 34, you know. So I kind of, that's the range. So, you know, I won't, the lowest I'll go is 30. It also depends on how loud someone plays too.
Yeah, totally.
But Sovtech 5881s and Dirty Shirley's I bias to 40.
40, yeah, I was going to say, yeah, pretty hot.
And it's considerably better sounding that way on that particular tube. And I haven't really had much problems with it.
Well, those 5881s are pretty robust, yeah. They can take.
Occasionally they short or do something weird, but yeah, they're pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. They're gone now.
Yeah, the good old days, right?
They're gone now.
Partridge transformers, and then we had another one about Marstrand transformers.
Marstrand transformers are made to spec by for Brian Brian from Habor. So Marstrand are made by Habor.
Wow.
They're just
custom spec
to his exact spec, because he's the one that tore down the transformers and gave Habor the specs. In fact, a lot of what Habor goes off of is things that he has torn down over the years. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Tone Revival Engineering. This is the level of geek that drew me to Tone Talk in the first place.
Hey, it's Warwick. Hey, was.
Yeah. If we're boring anyone to death, again, I'm sorry, and go have yourself a drink and
Warwick's
go watch some TV.
He's a local legend in the music industry here. Was.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Glad he's watching. Nice.
Oh, this is a good question.
So, L. Scott Music, with the many brands that Bad makes, have they considered making their own transformers? Anna Manley managed to make it work.
Ivana Manley.
Okay.
Or Manley Labs. Well,
good question.
Have we considered it? Yes, we've considered it. But frankly, I mean, it's just more employees and more headache and more. Fortunately, I don't have to do any of that, but I do see the owner, and I swear to God, he's on the verge of a heart attack all the time. So because it's just employing a large number of people is problematic.
It's crazy, yeah.
To put it nicely. And the more you add on, the more problematic it becomes, especially in California. So hopefully not.
Because Dave, I can imagine that in itself builds an expectation of new product development and releases on your part, right? Because you're just kind of like, that's a big machine now, and it needs to continue to operate. You know?
Exactly. So it's that's the thing. Once you build a company to the size that, say, we are, or boutique as a whole, with all the companies, you need to feed the machine.
Yeah,
it's hungry all the time. You got to feed it. And it's after a while, it's like, well, what am I going to make now? Shit. I don't know. Luckily, the pandemic has given us a little sort of lull and break from that a little bit,
Right.
Yeah, because it was a constant for many years.
But it was constant, but now it's coming again. So, yeah. And so, but the problem right now is actually manufacturing things.
Hmm.
So it's like, oh yeah, I have these 10 things lined up. Well, we can't put any of them to production yet. We gotta have transformers. We gotta have this. We gotta have that. We gotta have, this. Can we get this part? Can we do that? Can we, luckily most of our stuff is not digital based. Because that people are really screwed there.
Getting a chip. Yeah.
The chip shortage, yeah.
Like I have friends at sorry, mental block there. The new model or the
Not the quad cortex.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the parent company is what?
Neural DSP.
Thank you. I don't know why I can never remember the name when I go to think about it. And I have a good friend that is the head of sales there.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, come out with this thing. It took forever to come out with. And then we can't make it.
Wow.
They've been hurt by the chip short. I didn't realize that shit.
Oh, yeah. Chips and screens and all sorts of things, even simple things like, people, I talk to people like, I can't get chips to do MIDI with. I can't get this. I can't get that.
I better stock up then.
I've
got a bunch, but maybe not enough.
It's just hard to navigate. So, so next will be vintage line because I don't have to do anything digital.
Yep.
Well, actually not next. There'll be another product in there's another big product coming.
Ooh.
Which we can't talk about.
Cool.
But it's coming soon. Maybe end of summer.
Okay.
Or September, maybe.
Alex S. What's up? Thanks for the super chat. Hi, all. Mark had mentioned having his runt modded into a JJ Junior. Yes, I did. Can my runt 20 be modded into a Dirty Shirley Mini?
Sure thing. Easy.
Wow. I wish I could.
Actually, probably maybe a tad more like the big Dirty Shirley than the actual Mini was. Because you do have presence knob.
Huh. Well, I might be sending my JJ Junior.
It's easy. It's not. No, you're not. I just do the whole cosmetic and everything. No, fuck you.
Put it on a switch. I want both.
I know. I love my JJ Junior.
We'll get you a run. We'll get you a run 20 and mod it.
Okay, there you go.
You're going backwards.
I've got so many amps. It's crazy. Let's see.
But the cool thing, if you mod that like a runt to be the DS, then you get the clean channel with it. That's cool, huh?
That is cool. Oh, speaking of things, we got to work on my pedal board whenever you get a chance.
Yep.
Well, so we can do a video on that. Dave, can you mod my original Butcher?
Yeah, that'd be fun. Man, I got to tell you, those PV, the PV Butcher and the VTM. So if you remember, if you've ever seen pictures of those, right, they had the angled faceplate. So, where the control panel was angled up at you, right? Which is actually a pretty cool idea, actually, when you think about it. And the head boxes are really big and blocky around the sides. But what you don't know until you own one is that the actual head case that the amp goes in weighs as much as the amp itself. It's made out of like MDF or something, and those thick sides.
Yeah.
I think you could run it over with a tank and it'd still be in one piece. But man, is it heavy. I've done this for people in my shop. I had when I had the VTM out and the head case was just sitting there. I go, pick up that head case. And they pick up the head case, and I swear to God, I didn't weigh it. I should. I think the head case weighed like 40 pounds. Just the box. And then you got the amp. So the amp's not that heavy. The transformers are relatively big, but there's no choke. and it's open-ended on the sides of the chassis, and the chassis is not that, I'm like, holy crap. But I think you could toss it down the street and it'd be okay. Right. Literally, it was kind of made to do that.
Right.
We used to have a joke because I remember back growing up, people that would have their own PA systems for their bar bands and different things. So they would a lot of times use these old PVP, the PVP PA amps, CS 800. It's a big 4-space power amp. It was built. It was like cast iron face. It was like this really heavy, and you could toss it down the street, I think, and it would still work. It was like beefy. I mean, that was the whole thing. Made in America and strong.
Right.
I was just looking at a picture of one, Dave. Those things
Oh,
are huge.
the head?
Yeah.
The Butcher
CS800.
or the VTM?
The CS800.
Oh, yeah. That was a huge 4-space, massively heavy power amp. I don't think it was the best sounding, but it was a reliable, always work workhorse. But yeah, you could never break it. It wouldn't break ever.
Amazing. Ponder, thanks for the super chat. This is a great one. Keep nerding out.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can do that.
Would it be possible to incorporate from Purposeful Porpoise a favorite pedal into the circuit of a super lead, like installing the Boss SD1 circuit into the front end circuit wise, but in an amp?
Sure, Boogie did it.
Yeah, you totally can. And there's a few guys have done the whole kind of FET boost, high voltage LND 150 style boost, Dave. There's that's pretty popular too, right? And it's a similar kind of concept, yeah.
Yeah, you can. So like the PV, not PV. I'm sorry, the Mesa. What was the last amp they had before, like the Badlander? It was the 3-channel thing. It was the
I don't follow their amps that
TC
much.
something. One of their last amps have a tube screamer front end. It's in the circuit. You can switch in and out. The
Driftwood, yeah.
Driftwood Purple Nightmare has I think
pretty sure it's a TS9.
A TS9 circuit.
Yeah.
In the front end that you can kick in and out.
Yep.
I'm just still trying to remember the name of that Mesa amp. I'll go look. I got it now.
Not the Triple Crown?
Yeah, Triple Crown. Thank you.
Yeah,
that has it. I've seen the schematic. I know it's the same.
Is that the TC50 or something? Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. 50, or I think isn't there 100 also? Yeah, maybe.
Steve Longworth, thank you. Hello. What copper ounces and board thickness do you guys recommend for a good PCB board? You mean? I've heard some flex in the board can be a good thing. Thanks.
Well, if it's a what was the amp? If it's a 5150, then flex is probably
apparently yes.
I go 2.4 millimeter thick and 2 ounce copper.
It's definitely 2 ounce copper that we use, and I think our boards are slightly thicker than yours.
Maybe 3. 2.6 maybe.
We've done a couple different ones, so I think because you basically you should only make the board as thick as the relay leads.
Yeah.
Not thicker.
Yeah, they need to
pop through the other end,
Correct.
So
you don't want them too thick.
It could be 2.4 we use, to be honest. I think
it's pretty. 2.4 is pretty thick,
thick
right?
now. Yeah.
That's 2.4.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Sturdy. It's interesting. I've gotten really into like so I work for all my boards, I work with a PCB designer that works very closely with us. And he was an aerospace engineer guy. And he's an amp guy. He knows amp circuits and things. And
Cool.
but it's interesting. We have like a tag team thing going on. So like, he'll do the initial like kind of placement and stuff, and I'm the editor.
Yeah.
I'll sit there and go, I don't like how that is. Can we even that out there? And can we move that there? Can we move that there? And it's interesting because I'm the same way. I can't write copy. I'm not a good writer as far as copy for like, say, marketing copy or anything like that. If someone writes the copy, I am a good editor to the copy.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, don't say it that way. Say it this way, or say it this way. And it's the same way. It's like, I think people, I used to do some production and things, and it's like people would write the music, but I would be the producer. So I would be like, no, that's not quite right. You got to change that. And that's how my brain works, I think. So, but it's really actually kind of relaxing for me to sit there and stare at the PC board's traces. And also when I actually physically build a prototype, I'm like, oh, now I know what we can change.
Yeah.
So once you get a PC board on the screen to what you think will be okay, and then you actually go to build the amplifier, you're like, I can lay this out better. So this is less wires and less problematic to lay out. And these wires don't lay quite right. I want to change that placement. And
totally, you got to bring it together because it's how it sits in the chassis as well, right?
It's how it sits in the chassis. And until you can do a lot of it on the screen. And we've gotten in the rhythm where we have a good working relationship. So it's just like, oh, I see what you're talking about. And then the next board we do, it's like everything that applied from the previous board is now applied to this board. And all of a sudden it's like gets much easier.
Absolutely. You absolutely.
The more designs you do, your newest design is better than your first one. No matter what. Always better. And he's really good. He's a big proponent of we do the ground planes a little different than your boards. Okay. It's a flooded ground plane top and bottom on a lot of it.
Yep.
And which a lot of vias to keep the resistance and the ground plane to be nothing, essentially.
Yep.
I'm putting it very simply here.
Yeah.
Because you don't want any resistance. You want a ground plane to be one. You don't want to read if it's 1 ohm from here to here. It should be 0.4 ohms here and 0.4 ohms here.
Because then weird stuff starts to happen, right?
Yes.
It'll find a different pathway to ground, and then.
And he's really good at that because again he did aerospace for a lot of years, so he's
nice.
He has a different kind of view on it. Power sections though, we don't put any ground plane in.
Same. You don't need it.
Zero. Just in the preamp, because there's more issues with there can be more issues if you don't, even if you have the allowed clearance for the high voltage, there still can be issues. We're always really careful about that these days.
See some
we're
music.
geeking out. Sorry, we're just talking like bullshit here.
We're into ground planes now. It's awesome.
What's Dave and Jason's preferred modern production 12AX7 for V1?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Now or a month ago. I was using the 7025, the EH.
Low gain though.
Yeah, but I think
sounds good.
Yeah, and a cascaded, if you've got an amp that's 3 gain stage plus cathode follower or more, you don't need I don't think you need a super high gain.
I would agree. Of course, I have had some people complain about it.
Yeah, right.
But it seems like there's less gain than there should be. Okay.
Before that, I was using the Chinese 12AX7Bs.
Yes.
When you could still get them.
Mm-hmm.
So I went from there to the 7025s, and now.
Well, now there's some different things on the horizon, which we won't talk about right now, but they sound really good. That's what we got to say.
That sounds interesting.
This is a cool question from L. Scott Music. What happens to the prototypes after an amp goes into production?
Well, it depends. Sometimes they're torn apart and in pieces somewhere. Sometimes they're an amp that stays with me. Sometimes there's several prototypes and you just rip the board out of each one and rebuild another amp in it again.
Yep.
Sometimes they're sample amps. I've been trying to do this now where when we're doing all these new boards that we're doing, I'm trying to build one for myself when I do it. So I have a sample here of what's
referenced
as a reference.
Yeah. It's important.
I just do that off the prototype stuff and I just build an extra, like I'll build 2 prototypes or something. And then one will go to the factory and one will be here.
That's cool. Long Schlong Silvers. Okay. What's not so common component changes to a 2203 yield cool results? Also, Dave, can you spill the beans on the Sykes tone?
Okay. Well, the Sykes tone. Well, Sykes tone was a couple things. So, originally on some of the recorded stuff, it was a Boogie Mark II C+. Coliseum, which I think is the super high powered one. But as far as other than that, for years now, he's used Jose modded Marshalls. And they're like the last one I worked on for him was a JMP square switched late 78-ish era one he had. And this one had, I think this one originally had the push-pull master, so the pre and post tone stack master with diodes that were actually broken, so they weren't in the amp. It was useless. And on the front end of the Jose, if you know anything about this, on the front end of the Jose, after the first gain stage, after the first coupling cap, there was another coupling cap to ground, 0022 to ground, which actually cuts gain and high end.
Yeah, totally.
It cuts a lot of gain and high end. His wasn't there. So his was more gain. So more along the lines of the BE circuit, actually. And then when I restored it, I did give him the clipping diode option on a switch. But actually I don't think he uses it with the switch. So now I haven't seen his 50-watt amps he used forever with Thin Lizzy. I maybe one day I'll see those. So essentially it's a gain stage into a gain stage, missing one component. This is into gain stage into a stock Marshall with a master, basically.
And then a stock Marshall from there. Yeah.
And his hands.
I was about to say, and then you got to play like
his monster hands.
Wow.
Lucas Mastropasqua. Thanks for the super chat. Is there any advantage to using certain types of caps in specific parts of an amp circuit? Example, where would mica be for certain couplers or ceramic and resonance circuit? Thanks, guys.
Can be.
It depends.
I'm not going to say that. It sort of harkens back to what I said earlier about you could have different components and different things in an amp, and you have something to compare to and use an amp switcher, and you dial in the second amp, which has different components, to match the tone of the one that you're referencing. And majority of the time, you can do that.
Yeah.
There are a few things that I like better than other things. There are a few caps I like better. The Synergy Mustard caps I tend to like better than a lot of caps, but it's not set in stone, but they do sound good and a little bit richer, just a little tiny bit. Ceramics versus mica, you know, what mica, you know, CDE mica.
Mm-hmm.
Or the cheap mica, or there's some great ceramics that I found that I liked, because I really did like mica for treble caps and mixer bypass caps and things like that. But then I found, you know, everyone said, oh no, we like ceramic because it sounds this way. And I was like, sometimes I would put them in, I'd be like, I don't know if I like that. And then I went down this whole rabbit hole of trying every ceramic cap known to mankind to see what the differences were. And there are differences and how they sound.
They've got different colors.
They're different colors too. Yes. And so I picked the ones that are orange because orange sounds better.
Yeah. Orange sounds better. Orange sounds better than blue.
Yeah. No, but the orange ones actually did sound better.
No, the orange ones.
It's a 561 series of Vichy cap that is very, very, because it's coated, it's very stable, and they do sound pretty good.
Yeah.
And I started using those because I had a lot of problems with mica failing. So micas failing are bad. So we had to go with something else. And that's kind of what I've been using ever since, and it works out well.
Okay. 40 Grit, thank you. Hey, Dave, we got my It Depends shirt. Awesome. Any DeMartini updates?
Well, he did go to sushi with me on my wife's birthday. That's the only update I have for you.
Oh, nice. All right. Eventually, he'll do the show. He'll come on.
Maybe.
Maybe. What's that? Come on.
We're going to get Cantrell on. Come on, guys.
We're going to get Cantrell.
Cantrell's actually going to happen. It just when.
Yep. We're in touch with management.
Yeah.
By the way, I wrote you a text. I'm like, when is Cantrell coming on? And then I realized, I'm like, oh, we're still waiting to hear from the management, by the way. So,
well, I think it's not about that. It's about that he's on tour and we got to wait till he's back.
Exactly.
And then we'll get him on.
Yep. Clint Norwood. What's up, man? Since Headfirst, Monomyth, and Ground Zero use the same PCBs, transformer brands, have you guys given any thought to combining companies for US and Australia markets?
Yes. So this amp here, right, when it goes into production, which is probably going to be the middle of this calendar year, Shay will be manufacturing this for me in the US out of his shop. So we're definitely down that pathway. So that'll be available for, built and delivered in the US, and get around the insane shipping costs from Australia to the US, right? It's costs, like a UPS amp to ship it UPS from here to the States to West Coast is like $400 one way, right? So it's nuts.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So when you're doing them one at a time, that's kind of where you're at. So yeah, that's definitely the plan. And I'd love to do the same in reverse for sure. And I know there's a lot of Australian guys that are very interested in what Monomyth are doing. So yeah, I'm sure we could work that out.
That's super cool. Sorry, Barry C. Where do I get an It Depends shirt? So if you go to our store, which will be below the video or any of our other videos, there's the YouTube store, and then you should be able to go there and then click on it, and it goes to Spring website.
Click on the t-shirt pictures.
Yeah, Okay, Dave, much
I
easier
simplified
explanation.
it.
He simplified it exactly.
Scroll
His
down,
editing.
click on the pictures that have T-shirts on them,
Yes. All right.
because that's what comes up in this across our screen.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yep.
I know Pete Thorne on his videos just has a link. He doesn't have the whole pictures of the shirts.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why that is. Maybe he just like, oh really? I didn't know.
Maybe you have an option. I'm not sure. For Jason, can you talk about the guitars you have hanging on the wall above the amps by Kotzen, Sykes?
Yeah, that's just a few of them, but some of my favorites. That gem flower pattern I've had since '88.
Oh, that's cool. It was original.
My original one, yeah. Got it brand new, and it's been with me ever since. So that's the kind of the guitar I learned on, so to speak. Been with me forever. And we'll go to the grave for that one. The Kotzen's cool. Kotzen Tally, I've had that for a little while. It's a bit of a beast, right? It takes a bit of getting used to that thing. The neck it's baseball bat. It's pretty comfortable. You get used to it, yeah. I don't play it heaps these days, but it's a pretty ripping tally. It's not the tally that you buy when you want a classic tally sound.
Yeah, it's more rocking. Definitely.
It's a rocking tally, right? It's got a hot rails kind of humbucker thing in the bridge there. That is that custom at the end there is a 57 reissue, so like an R7, I guess you'd call it, yeah. And they've done it beautifully. Like it's done period correct, I think. Right, so it's nitro finish the whole thing, right? And it's got that one is the it's 100% mahogany. There's no maple cap on those R7s. So it's got a kind of unique sound for a Les Paul. It's a bit I don't know. It's not quite as snappy, perhaps.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
This is a Pete Thorne signature.
Oh, nice.
The gold.
And that's how I would have gotten it too in the gold. Yeah, that's great.
The gold's cool.
Yeah.
This is killer. This is I keep coming back to this thing. It's just
gorgeous.
It is amazing, and it's just these things come out, and they're just like they're so precision machinery, right? It's just it's a joy to play. So that's probably my favorite. I mean, I've got other ones that gem is far more sentimental value.
Right? I saw you had like a red newer Kramer.
Yeah, that's
that was pretty cool.
That was pretty cool. I'll grab it. Hang on, 2 seconds.
Sure. Smy Tree, bartender, another round for all my friends. Cool. Thanks.
Oh,
man.
Does that mean I have to go get another beer?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. There's the Kramer. That's cool.
Yeah, this is the USA
84,
one. Right? Yeah, I think they've got the USA 1984. This one, and then they've got the new kind of reissue, which they call the 84, which I think is perhaps Korean made or something.
Yeah, it is.
This is the original reissue, I guess, the 1984 one. So it's got the old Floyd on it. I think it's a JB.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think it is.
Is that a poplar body on those, or what is it?
The body?
Basswood? Poplar, basswood? What is it?
I actually don't know. I think it might be older. But it's got a really nice neck. This neck it surprised me actually. It's a little bit chunkier. I was expecting this way, but not too much. And it's got that natural finish, that kind of oil.
Yeah.
The natural finish on it, yeah. Kind of like Charvel kind of style, or
right.
The Uni Ball, just that oiled kind of finish. It's really nice.
It's a nice guitar. Beautiful.
That's cool. That's cool. It struck me. I saw it in the video, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I like the gold logo on the red. I don't know. It looks kind of cool.
Well, I've been toying with the idea of stripping this and actually doing a 5150 tribute.
Nah, just leave it like that.
I'm not that good in the paint shop, so
just leave it like that. Just leave it like that.
Yeah,
might leave it like this. Yeah.
I know somebody who can hook you up with a 5150 replica. So,
really?
Yeah, I've got one. What's that?
I do too.
I'll tell you offline.
Yeah, cool. All right. Excellent.
Let's see. Yeah, I know a couple guys who make some great relics of the 5150.
Oh, I'm talking. The 5150 replica.
Yeah.
Like period,
And
like
there's the original. Then there's the original one that Fender makes,
yeah.
Right. Also.
which is
Yeah.
the
The
same
Frankie.
one. Pete uses the Frankie.
Mm-hmm.
I know a guy there too.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Before we get to this question, I had a question for you guys. So I just got a Strat Ultra from Fender. Awesome guitar. I love the neck on that guitar. Really, it's just great.
Cool.
It's built amazing. But does anybody like Strat single coil Fender? I mean, bridge pickups.
Yeah.
Yeah, you like a bridge Strat pickup?
It's not. It's a Strat. It's not going to be. It's not going to be your humbucker.
I know. It just sounds so weak to me.
If you I mean, maybe these ultras are already like this, right? But the classic mod is to move one of the tone pots to the bridge position, because some of the early Strats, right? Those two tones are just for the neck and the middle pickup, and the bridge is just coming through.
Yeah, you move the tone to the bridge pickup, and then you can roll it off a little bit.
Roll it off.
Yeah,
but there can be better bridge pickups too that are still single coil. You have a telly, right? Do you like your telly?
Yeah.
How that sounds?
Yes.
So then a bridge pickup in a Strat can sound at least like that.
Right. So you can get a telly sounding bridge pickup.
You just need a slightly hotter wind.
Yep.
Liam Deacon.
Yeah, that's true.
Is it too weak or too trebly?
It's both. It's both. Yeah. It's just the bridge pickup. The middle and the neck are great. And they're the newest version of Fender's noiseless pickups.
Yeah, right.
So which is fine on a middle and bridge, but for me, I think on the neck, on the bridge, on the middle and the neck, it's fine. But for the bridge, I want something a bit hotter. So
one thing you can try that's pretty is do that. Make sure that the tone is on the bridge.
I think there is the way.
Try bringing the height of that pickup up a little bit.
Okay.
You'll get more output, and it'll be brighter as well. But you can roll it back with the tone.
Roll it back a little bit. Yeah.
Might work for you.
I'll try it. Yeah, that's cool. Guitar Rocks 777. Thank you. I have an 89 Laney AOR 100 amp head. Any mods or common problems with the amp gets? Any pedal recommendations? Run a Boss Superdrive overdrive with it?
Okay, so we were talking about this earlier, and I think there's all sorts of mods you could do to it. Although I haven't done any of them. So I don't. Yes, I'm sure it could be much better than it is with a few minor tweaks, actually.
It's probably a case, Dave, where it's going to benefit a lot from taking some bass out of the early part of the preamp. It's
absolutely, yep.
One of those ones.
It has a little, yeah. I have to look at the schematic again. What the maybe I'll look at
change the first coupling cap to a 0.0022, something like that, right? It's probably the case. If you find the amp a bit, I don't know, a bit bassy, a bit bloated, probably just can benefit from taking some bottom end out early in the amp.
I'm actually looking.
All right, here we go.
Because I'm just refreshing my memory. And let me find the right schematic.
And it's probably a good time to ask this question as well. Same thing for a Laney AOR 50 watt and doing a mod for bass.
The bass has to be on 0 because there's too
much.
For bass, yeah.
Is that because there's too much bass? He's saying that he has to run it on 0. Yeah.
I don't know what he's saying.
He said, it pulled the bass knob. It has to be on 0. Still better than not pulled. Love the amp.
I see what you mean. You have to have the bass knob on 0. Yeah, well, that's because I'm gonna have a schematic here in a second, so I can actually speak properly. AOR 50. Well, I guess that's probably fine. Yeah, so the first coupling cap is a 022. So the very first thing you should do is you change the very first coupling cap to a much lower value, 0022 maybe. That automatically right there is going to get you in the ballpark.
Totally.
Because essentially what happens is you have a 2.7 K 47. Oh, maybe. Now in this schematic, the very first stage says it's a 2.7K resistor, cathode resistor with a. This is handwritten, so I'm not sure if it's a 0.47.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Or a 47, but I don't think it's a 47. It might be a 0.47.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. I should look at a different schematic and see. And the first coupling cap again is the big one. And then it goes 100K resistor in series with 100K pot after to ground and then into the next stage. So effectively 100K divider when that pot is on 10.
Yeah.
So you're good there. I think that'll be fine. Just change the first coupling cap, shrink it a lot. And the next stage is a 0.68, 2.7K stage with 022 out, and then back into a 1 meg pot, and then through a 68K series resistor into the 10K gain stage, a 10K cathode resistor, so cold clipper. So that's like the 800-ish sort of. And then out of that, it goes into your standard mixer resistors of a Marshall standard cathode follower with no bypass cap in the first half. And the EQ is decoupled with a 0.22 cap.
Wow. Okay.
So it's the EQ is decoupled because they have all these push-pull pots.
Yeah.
That change. There's a mid boost, which changes the value of the treble cap. There is a. What else we got here? This is fun. This is total geekdom here.
I'm picturing this
a typical EQ, and then it comes out of the treble wiper and goes into this. It's not really a gain stage.
It's not a master. This is this recovery stage thing, yeah?
It's a recovery stage, but it's really more of a buffer.
Okay.
You have to take a look at that. It's odd. And then it comes out of that buffer stage and then goes into the masters.
Is it coming off the cathode or the plate?
No, the plate, but they're 100K. Well, there's a voltage divider, and then there's 100K masters in parallel.
Wow. Okay.
Hold on, wait. Is it in parallel? Some of these. There's a bright cap that for the top boost circuit, it's a bright cap across the master, which is a pull gain pot thing.
Right.
And then they did interesting things because they did op amp effects loops in these amps. Quite nicely. Kind of a.
It's pretty early to be doing that, yeah. Because
the whole architecture of this amp, if you look at it, is
before its time.
Before its time, it kind of is the predecessor to what became the hot rodded generation of boutique amps, so to speak.
Yeah,
it's cool. And with a few minor changes, I do think it could be really good.
So, cool, Joe.
That's what I know.
Idea for an amp. If a blackface and a plexi had a baby, master volume and gain in the circuit, does it exist? Would you start from a blackface circuit or plexi? Discuss. Thanks. Love the show.
Would you mean 2 channels?
Yeah, because that's
two different architectures.
or blend. You mean blended together into one channel? I don't know about that. But
So I can tell you that a long time ago there was an amp called an Egnator dual tone, which I was involved with, which had it was a Fender clean channel, and the other channel was a Plexi, and then they were blended into the 100-watt Plexi power section. But there was no masters or anything. It was just.
Could you blend the two channels together, like, or they?
If you fed both inputs, you could.
Yeah.
But generally not. It was just designed to be like AB or something.
One or the other. Yeah. Yep.
Here's my wife. Hey, April.
Hi. My wife never does that.
It's okay.
She couldn't
say hi to her. Hey, Dana. What's up, Dana?
Actually, she did post something in our last chat, and I didn't know because it was under a different name.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh. What's up, Amanda?
Hello, Amanda.
Hey.
We've got some females watching the show. I love it.
One.
Well,
maybe
besides my
two.
wife. Maybe a few. Mr. Anderson, what's up? I have a batch of around 60 plus Marshall 00010 and SED wing C's laying around, and I decided to match them 4s and 2s. Within how many MVs would you consider them matched, and what would be a safe max difference?
4 or 5, maybe 4, 3, 4, somewhere in there. 5 max, but I would like to see it a little less.
Yeah, it makes you feel a bit uncomfortable.
4 is probably my kind of max.
Will you be at Summer NAMM in Anaheim? No, we covered that. He'll be walking around though.
No, I might be walking around. I if I decide, I probably will. I'll probably go. Just I kind of want to see what it's been reduced to. Is that going to be one convention hall? That's what I want to know.
You mean like one floor?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad knowing that what it was peaking a few years ago.
But it was on its way out. I think it was like kind of an antiquated business model that cost the manufacturers so much money.
You're right.
And I don't know what the benefit was for anyone, really.
It became a social event. That's really what it became.
It's a social event, and that was fun.
Yeah.
Right. That's
really I like that. You see people that you don't see but once a year or something.
But to spend $150,000 and or whatever.
How many sales do you have to write to break even?
A lot.
Yeah. You don't break even.
A lot. Dave, do you think that the way that things have unfolded over the last few years with the pandemic, that it's opened up opportunities for direct? What does it? I guess my question is, what does it mean for the dealers and the retailers, given that everyone's just kind of getting used to doing everything online now, including hearing demos?
That's a good question. I mean, there's a bunch of companies out there that do direct models, like Fractal, for instance.
Yeah.
Always direct model. I mean, more and more people buy stuff on the internet. So they don't go to the guitar store to check out the latest gear. They see it online. Yeah. They see it online. They watch a video of it. They go, wow, that's cool. I think I want to get one of those. And then they go buy it from Sweetwater or they buy it from one of various other online retailers.
You can now buy direct.
And then, they get free returns. So it's, you don't like it, you can return it. Okay. You can try it in the privacy of your own home with your own guitar, and no one can hear you playing horribly. If that's the case.
Right.
You can feel comfortable. Anyone can feel comfortable doing it.
And then you don't like it, you send it back. Exactly.
You don't like it, you send it back. You have it, X number of day return policy.
But Fender and Gibson, I think, are actually doing direct. No.
Yeah, there's I mean, there's a lot to be said for that because, I mean, now you have the opportunity to be able to market and drive the people buying to your product.
Mhm.
I don't know if it, I think distribution through a bunch of stores like GCs or Sweetwaters and things are great for a brand, breaking a brand. Although once a brand's established, of course, you can't really go backwards. It's kind of a weird.
Yeah.
Well, then you piss off all the dealers, and you can't do that. So, yeah, that's a tough one.
Interesting, isn't it? Interesting to see what happens.
Honestly, I think if you can keep your business direct and you can keep it on a small scale, and you can make enough money doing your business, you have a big enough name, and you're doing enough volume, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if one person, let's say hypothetically, if one person is making amps, as just you or two people or something, or and you can turn out X number of amps a month, and you can sell them direct, you can make a good amount of money on them. You might be able to make, without any headaches, be able to make what you'd like to see in a salary.
Yeah.
As you get bigger, it doesn't necessarily mean you make any more salary. It just basically causes more headaches, and you're making the same salary.
Yeah, I get it.
So it's interesting. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah. Fixed pedal boards. Thank
Tim!
you, man. Refresh my memory. What's the difference between a small box and BE50 tone wise? Plus, are you down to build me another 100 watt Dirty Shirley, or are you booked up? Kick ass show as always. Hey, thanks, man.
What'd you do for the last one? Tim, small box and B50. Well, B50 small box has a plexi channel, and it's simple. It's very simple. Just 2 gains, 2 masters, 1 EQ, and has a plexi channel and a kind of BE channel. The B50 has like a Buxom Betty clean channel. It has a BE channel and an HBE channel. So both are cool. It's just a question of, do you want to keep it simple, or do you want it more complicated? Do you need a pristine clean, or do you not care about the pristine clean, and do you want the plexi?
You've got your adjustable negative feedback and all that too, right, Dave? And
yes, you do. You have adjustable negative feedback and deep. But for you, Tim, you could have any of that on your small box if you wanted. And 100 watt DS, yeah, we can do something for sure.
Okay.
And Tim, just to clarify, Tim is the one that makes all the metal work for Boutique.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
All the chassis.
Oh, wow, cool.
And all our stupid pedal boards and everything else. Thank you for making cake pans for all of us. We always joke it's a cake pan.
Yeah.
It's really just a big cake pan with holes in it.
What are they made of? Steel? What are they made out of? The chassis?
Steel or aluminum, depending on the amp.
Okay.
Most of our chassis are steel, with 2 of them being aluminum.
What's the purpose of the aluminum first?
Actually, to be honest, I have no idea at this point. I you know what? It was left over. It was left over from a bygone era. Hey, let's make an aluminum chassis like an old Marshall, and then we made an aluminum chassis. And then, to be honest, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Can you talk
aluminum
about?
Is actually more expensive.
Is it?
Well, actually, currently, who knows? Tim could answer that. Aluminum or steel, Tim? Which one's more expensive right now? Probably aluminum.
Okay. I'm wondering if you could talk about the wah pedal you modified for Dean DeLeo.
Well, it's a crybaby wah that's modified.
And it's killer.
It's killer, right?
It's killer, yeah. Okay, he's got a couple of them. So it has a true so it took older wahs and had it put a true bypass switch in them, converted the circuit if it was a newer wah to more of an older circuit, and then gave you a 3 or 5 position, depending on which one and which era I did, a sweep kind of switch. So as you turn the sweep switch, it gets more gain and a wider sweep. So the lower frequency goes lower. I used to do those all the time for people back in the 90s and early 2000s and stuff. I still do them, but this doesn't happen very much these days. It can't be any of these new wahs with all surface mount components. Screw that. No, not going to do that. Has to be an older wah with all through hole components.
Yeah.
Okay. Robert Eastwood, I see your super chat, but I don't see your question. If anyone's playing Tone Talk Bingo, that's one of them, by the way. I love that Tone Talk Bingo. Just that cracked me up. Can you guys talk about the difference between master volumes and attenuators and amps? Dave, why did you choose a master volume? Seems like an attenuator should be better in theory, but does that work in practice?
Okay. So the majority of the sounds in our amps come from the preamp section of the amp. So it's very simple to add a volume to the end of the preamp section. An attenuator really is used more for an amp that derives its tone from cranking it on 10. So like a vintage Plexi, a vintage Vox, a vintage Hiwatt, or things like that. We're not deriving any of our tone from that kind of power section distortion. So that's the difference, basically. There's no need for an attenuator in our amp. In fact, because we have so much front end gain, if you distort the power section that much, it's going to sound like crap anyway.
Gets mushy, right?
Yeah, it's just too much. It's like gain on top of gain on top of gain.
Right.
Yeah. It's like not good.
I think I passed by it, but someone said I really like. Oh, here, I like this show because seeing the wall of guitars behind Mark makes me look sane to my wife. Yes, please use me as an example.
If you could see the number, there's guitars at home. There's guitars here. There's guitars. I'm trying to sell guitars. There's boxes and bins all down the hallway here of
stuff,
pedals. There's more stuff laying around here that I haven't touched in 10 years. It's hard to believe. Like bins of like, wow, there's 20 wah-wah pedals in this bin. Maybe I should pick one I really want and sell the rest.
Yeah, you need to go through that shit.
Well, that's kind of the plan. I started doing it, and then I kind of slacked off, and I'd do it. By the way, I still have a Charvel pick guitar for sale.
Oh, show
it again?
Yeah.
Is it on reverb, Dave?
No, he just wants to sell it off the show. He sold the other 2 guitars, I think, that he had.
Right.
So, Charvel, fixed bridge,
Sassafras, right?
JB, Sassafras, 2 Duncan something single coils, SLS ones maybe. Cool neck, brand new. It's like brand new. Nothing.
What's the price on it?
Locking tuners, $650.
That's a good deal.
Wow, that's a good price.
Yeah, it's a good price. It's a great guitar. It sounds great. I just don't need it.
All right, hit me up or hit Dave up, and you guys can grab it.
It's never been about need.
I'm not joking. It really does sound good. I mean, it sounds really good.
Oh, I've heard good things about those guitars.
I just don't need it.
No question, just a thanks, guys. Thanks, OK James. Done electronics my whole life, HP, Agilent, Tektronix, and refreshing my 40-year-old trainer got me digging back into tube amps. Oh, cool. Geek
Cool,
on.
man.
So,
Awesome.
Beautiful. Ashley Moores, happy Headfirst customer here. Awesome. Dave, what do you think of Jason's 69 Plexi restoration? Cheers from Sydney, Australia.
I was there the whole time.
correct.
Well, I wasn't there, but I wish I was
Yeah,
there.
no, Dave gave me a bunch of advice on the way with that one.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, like the progression's been really fun to watch. You know,
cool.
like it came from this ratty tag, kind of thing, and it's slowly been dialing in with the mustard caps, and I actually really like the 6A7s in it.
Yeah, they're a thing,
What do you
right?
think about those? I thought.
Yeah,
those are
totally.
cool.
This was one of the things that.
What are the
blew me
preamp
away.
tubes you got in it?
Well, I've got some old USA preamp tubes in it now.
Mm-hmm.
The last video, I didn't. I kind of think I've probably done enough videos on this amp now, right? So I decided not to do one on the pre's. But the last video I did where I put it on the Variac, that's now got the old USA preamp tubes in it. And but the guy, so what amazed me about that is when I put that clip out there, because I picked up this 69 50 watt. It's a 1987 T, the old tremolo model. I think Dave, that amp, you'll probably confirm this, right? But I think that was originally in a combo.
Probably.
Yeah, and it's somewhere in the 70s it got lifted out and put into a head cab because it's in a non-original 70s era JMP head cab. And it's got, because it's a tremolo amp, it's actually got 8 pots on it.
Mm-hmm.
But the tremolo circuit's been ripped out, so those 2 pots are disconnected. But I was able to reuse one of them because one of those in those tremolo amps, it's a 50K pot on the tremolo. So I use that for the mid pot, 50K mid pot, right? And Eddie's number 1.
Where do you think Marshall got those 50K pots from?
Yeah, right. So someone picked it out of the bin.
It was either an accident or they just ran out of 25K pots.
Yeah. So when I started the first few clips on this thing, just to kind of like, hey, here, I picked up the amp and we'll do a series of videos as I kind of restore this and try and source some, vintage parts and so on. I actually, before I bought the amp, I sent pictures of it to Dave, email, and I said, Dave, what do you reckon? Is this legit? Does this thing look like it's worth picking up? And he definitely. The transformers are all original, and that's kind of the main thing. The pots were all original. Mm-hmm. The whole turret board had basically been stripped. Every component, other than maybe the resistors, were reasonably original, I think, Dave. But
yeah, a few of those. Yeah, the resistors were mostly original.
Mostly original. All the coupling caps and so on had been replaced over the journey. The whole bias circuit had been rebuilt, but badly. All kinds of things, right? So, but then there were, there's a handful of guys reached out to me and said, I've got some old mustards. Do you want them? I'm like, yeah. So I was getting packages sent, mainly guys in Australia, right? So Warwick, who was on here before, Tone Revival, he sent me some from his little stash, and there was another guy in Sydney who I wanted to give a shout out to, but he kept saying that he didn't want to be named. He sent me what I was expecting just to be a few mustard caps, and then this package arrived, and he had all these old tubes in this pack. So those old 6CA7s, Dave, they were handed to me by this guy in Sydney who just wanted to see them go into an old amp, So it's been amazing.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, I thought it sounded really cool with the 6CA7s. I don't know how I feel about the USA preamp tubes. What kind are they?
It's a mix. There's some Sylvanias in there, and I think one might be an RCA. It's really hard to tell because all the lettering's all worn off.
Yeah, I don't know how I always feel about those. I mean, they're good tubes. I just in a Marshall like that. To be honest, I just like the Chinese across the board.
That's what I had.
You can get 3 Chinese across the board. I think it sounds cool.
The earlier videos, that's what I've got in there.
The
12AX7Bs, the Chinese. So maybe I'll put them back in. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Modern Vintage, Dave, what is your favorite power supply to use in racks and boards? Does a Voodoo Pedal Power 3 Plus perform any better than a Strymon?
How about mine? Mine works perfect as long as you don't need any really odd voltages. The Voodoo Lab 3 Plus is also excellent. I know Josh really well, and he really worked very hard on making sure that was very noise free. I have had some issues with the Strymons with some noise, switching power supply noise. So I'm not like, they work pretty well, and sometimes they work great, but I'm a little leery of them. I can tell you mine work perfectly, though. Put them in tons of rig builds by now. So, like, I just know.
Okay. Tom and Lisa. Hey, Dave, what's the difference in tone and feel of the Jakey Lee and your BE100 and why? Thanks so much. Great show tonight. Thanks.
Jakey Lee's brighter, more percussive. I mean, like, there's not like it's similar to the BE100 Deluxe with the C45 switch on, similar in nature. But I have a 100K plate resistor on the first stage, and that just is a little more open, a little brighter, and just it's kind of a man's amp, though. Meaning it's
brutal.
It's kind of a brutal, punchy, and it wants to be played a little loud. And when it is, it sounds great, but it could scare people. It scared people before. I remember demoing it for some people, and it's just like, oh.
Check out Jakey Lee playing it.
It's just like, yeah. He kind of ran it kind of uniquely because he would use the plexi channel on 10, and then he would use the 800 channel, but on 10. Right. So
I couldn't imagine how loud.
Meaning master and gain on 10 for both channels.
It's so loud.
Does he seriously play that channel on 10?
Yes. But it has to be the 800 channel because the other one's too high gain for being on 10.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And specifically, and it's kind of interesting when you hear this. So when you hear the plexi channel dimed, which is basically like a plexi cranked,
it sounds great.
It sounds cool. And when you switch to the 800 version dimed, it's just a little bit more gain, but it's sort of the same exact tone. And that's what he wanted. He didn't want to dip in bass. He didn't want to dip in anything. So for how he uses it, that's how he uses it. And it's kind of interesting because so the amp I worked on Warren D. Martini's amp. And Warren D. Martini's plexi is an 800. Someone changed the front end to an 800. But he runs the 800, the master, on 10. So it's really, and if you look at an 800 architecture, it's essentially kind of a plexi with an added cold clipper gain stage.
Totally.
It's just that extra gain stage shoved in there that's kind of like not really a lot of gain. And so it really just adds a little bit more. But if you turn the master down to normal levels, it sounds like an 800. But when you crank it, it sounds like a boosted plexi.
When you put that master on 10, it's out of the circuit pretty much, right?
It's out of the circuit, yeah. You can't, if you even lift the tail of it, you can't really hear any difference whatsoever. There's 1 meg to ground right there. It's not really loading. It's not loading the EQ at all.
Yeah.
So it's sort of interesting.
Yeah, that is.
And it never really dawned on me, but even if you take any 800 and do that kind of thing with it, and it's got he runs the gain a little lower. So, the gain has a bright cap.
You still got the 1 nanofarad bright.
Yes,
bright
correct.
Cap,
so that tightens things up. Yeah. So if you bring that back to like say 6, 7 range in there, it tightens it up more because you got a big cap out of the front end.
Totally.
It tightens it up more, makes it snarl, and then with the master on 10.
But it's just so insanely loud, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and then he uses an attenuator with it, but
right. Okay.
So.
Thank God.
Lawrence, thanks for getting a Tone Talk at Depend shirt, man. Thank you. He feels like he contributed to his part. Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate your support, man. It helps. It helps us. We appreciate it. Dave, did you base the Friedman cabs off the naked cab you have? Have you thought about trying to mimic that cab? I think he means
the Friedman cabs are based off vintage style sort of Marshall cabinets. Not one in particular, but they do have birch backs. And not necessarily based off of the naked cab I have. That's a hard one to reproduce because of the speakers. Because they were like 90s reissued greenbacks and they don't exist anymore. 6402 cones.
Right. Modern Vintage, thanks again. Can you discuss how the 100-watt Dirty Shirley compares to the 40-watt and Twin Sister? Have you done a 100-watt small box or a custom one-channel plexi like amp custom order?
I've done all that stuff. 100-watt Dirty Shirley, which doesn't really exist. It did a long time ago, but I haven't done very many in recent years.
Do you do 2 rectifier tubes with that?
No, I don't even put the rectifier in.
Yeah, good.
It's really just the Dirty Shirley front end.
Yeah.
With the standard 100-watt power section. So it's big and bold and cool. It's very similar. You can kind of mimic that if you have a BE with the C45 switch on and the FAT switch on. And doesn't exactly mimic it, but it would come close to it.
That's cool. Jimmy Ray Hawkins says, I remember the demo show from the Whiskey, loud and does a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar kick to the chest while you enjoy ear slap from Chuck Norris. And to finish off, you get kicked in the balls by Bruce Lee.
Are you describing Jake?
Yeah,
I think so. That's
that pretty much describes it. So I remember going to the last Whiskey show that Red Dragon Cartel played, which was not the very first one, but the second one, where he had the Friedmans. He got that amp for the first time. And, there was a 50-watt switch on it too. So, at first he was using it in 50-watt mode. He was digging it. It was on 10. And it was louder than hell. And in an empty Whiskey, this seemed really loud, painfully loud.
Yep.
But that's an empty Whiskey.
Right.
When a crowd comes in, it changes everything. It gets absorbed and kind of doesn't seem that loud anymore. But but it was loud. And then for the show, he used the 100-watt mode, and it was just brutal. Yeah.
His ears must be shot.
Actually, you know what? I don't think so.
Really?
Well, I mean, here's how I generally tell. Generally, if people's ears are shot, they're asking you what you said all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and missing stuff that you said, and what did you say? Things like that. Never have I heard Jake utter any of those words.
Yeah. Oh,
I don't think his ears are shot at all.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe
You got to remember how he points his cabinets, though.
Right, he points them diagonally.
Yeah. So essentially, like he said, he goes. Generally, I hate the monitor guy, so I point one at him. And generally, I hate the singer, so I got to point. I got to point the other one at him. So then I'm right in the middle. I'm good.
He's a smart man.
That's funny. Mark Pritchard, Dave, blackback or greenbacks for early Van Halen?
Could have been either, but I kind of think blackbacks. Judging from the era it was in, blackbacks.
Okay.
They're not like crazy different depending on what year the greenback and how abused the cabinet was. And
well, I've gone through the questions. I think we've talked through all the super chats and all the real cool questions. So guys, definitely check out Headfirst Amps and Jason. Jason, how do people get in touch with you and check out your
You can contact me from the website. There's a contact form there. You can message me on Facebook. So there's a Headfirst page. I picked up all the messages there. That's the easiest way. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Robert Eastwood, I couldn't find a question from you, so for some reason I missed it. Please let me know, or you can email me at tonetalkmark@gmail.com, and I'll get your question asked and answered. Our next guest is Dave Navarro.
we think.
Hopefully Dave will be able to come. I know he was in a band with Taylor Hawkins, so
This might be a sensitive time.
yeah, he might be, morning. So, but hopefully he'll come on. If not, well, maybe we'll do an Ask Dave or something like that. Dave K says, Mark, love the t-shirt selection tonight. Cool. All right. Great. We'll have more shirts too for you. And like I said, hopefully Dave Navarro will come on. If not, we'll reschedule him for another time. And let's see who else we got coming on, Dave. Remind me.
I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, yeah. No. I don't have, so we have Steve from Rob Cunningham. I'm sorry. Rob Cunningham from Diodario. Or actually, as I saw, it was pronounced Diodario.
Diodario, yeah.
Diodario.
Where I always used to say Diodario.
Same.
Yeah.
But it's just Diodario.
Diodario.
Yeah. I just learned that today. So Rob's going to come on and we'll have more guests soon. And please subscribe. Please enter the contest so we can give this freaking guitar away and I can get it out of my guest bedroom. Get the box out.
Find your friends and just let them subscribe to our channels.
Yes. And I'm going to get all the names.
Bully them into it.
Well, it'll probably be within the next week or two. We'll be doing a live show to give away the guitar. So check out Sweetwater, please. All right. And check out the link below. Make sure you click on that, purchase anything from Sweetwater, and we get a little kickback. We appreciate it. Jason, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's been an absolute privilege.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. And guys, check out Headfirst Amps. Okay. Really. I'm sure Jason will
If
appreciate
you're
it.
into building your own amps, check out the boards and things that you can do. And other than that, check out the new amp, which is up in the left-hand side of Jason's screen there.
There's only one in existence at the moment, but soon to be more.
What is it? Altma?
It's Alta.
Alta? Okay, sorry.
Alta 100, yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, hang on, Jason, while we say goodbye. Everybody have a great weekend.
Thank you, guys.
We will talk to you soon.